poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
The largest union talk radio show in the South. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Joe Harrison, the graphic designer, video producer extraordinaire, filling in temporarily for Jacob and Adam, who are both out of town today. It's going to be a little bit less polished today, so I appreciate you bearing with me. But we've got a great show lined up for you. If you would like to call in, well, we can't take your calls live or read your chats live, because this is all pre-recorded, but you can call and leave a voicemail. That number is 844-899-TVLR. Once again, that is 844-899-8857. And that is open all throughout the week. You can call at any time, leave a voicemail anytime. We do review all the voicemails, and we may even listen to it and react to it or answer it or whatever on the next live broadcast. Now, typically when I have filled in as the temporary host, that has meant that this is going to be a clip show, maybe of stuff that you've already seen before, a best of show. Not that that's a bad thing, but I just want to make it clear that's not what's happening today. We actually do have plenty of new content for you today. So we hope that you will stick around with us. We've got a lineup of some great pre-recorded interviews and some clips from other sources. So I think you will enjoy what we have lined up today. Also, just a reminder that we are on Discord now. So if that is your kind of thing, we encourage you to join us on there. You can just look for the Valley Labor Report on Discord and you'll find us. So we've got a clip and a pre-recorded segment coming up. First off, Jacob joins our local conservative radio host, Dale Jackson, who probably many of you are familiar with because he's either been on this show or we've played clips of Jacob on his show before. Jacob, every once in a while, is invited onto Dale Jackson's show. Even though they don't see eye to eye on a lot of things politically, Dale Jackson likes to get alternative perspectives, which I appreciate, and I think we need more of that kind of thing today. So Jacob is joining Dale Jackson to talk about the impending threat of the privatization of the TVA. For those of you who are not familiar with that, who maybe don't live in this area, that is the Tennessee Valley Authority, which is basically our energy provider. And there has been lots of talk of privatizing that. So Jacob is joining Dale to talk about that, why that's not a good idea, and why it should concern everybody. So without further ado, we're going to roll that clip now.
Dale Jackson here with you. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate you being here and appreciate you every single day. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't understand the constant push for the privatization of the TVA. I don't understand it. I just do not get it. And it is constantly being done. And I'm just not so sure this is the right way to handle this because I don't get what is the problem they are looking to resolve. That's my question. I hear all the time, oh, the TVA president makes too much money. Well, do you see what he oversees? Do you see this? I don't buy that argument in business. I don't buy it anywhere else. Oh, the CEO makes this much times more than the average worker. Who the hell cares? That's not the point. That is not the point. The point is you want to get the best person you can possibly get in there. And sometimes you have to offer a pretty big salary in order to do that. It doesn't hurt my feelings that CEOs make so much more money than the average line worker. Oh, the average front counter worker at McDonald's makes significantly. Yeah, no kidding. That's my response to that. No kidding. That's exactly right. Dan Bongino, when he was a radio host, made hundreds of times the amount of money I make. Am I supposed to be mad about that? I don't know why. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that. But Jacob Morrison is here with us. He was the Valley Labor Report. Some of the unions are starting to kind of bristle at the idea that the TVA be privatized. And Donald Trump's already replaced some people on the TVA board. I was told that he replaced women with men. That's a big problem, apparently, that we're supposed to be upset about. But I'm not sure I buy that either. The push to privatize the TVA has been going on for a very long time. But Donald Trump takes big swings, and this is one that he seems to be stepping up to the bat, ready to take a swing on that, Jacob. What do you think is going to happen here?
I think that if Trump goes forward with any attempts to privatize the TVA, he's going to face significant pushback. Like you said, the unions that represent workers at the TVA have already started speaking out about it. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers represents 10,000 electrical workers there. And that's just one union, right? I mean, there are iron workers, there's engineers, there's all sorts of folks that work for the TVA, and they're going to have a problem with it. But you're also going to have environmental groups, not super important to the president, but, it's worth noting the TVA has one of the, or has the cleanest mix, for people who care about clean energy, quote unquote, of any utility company in the country. Like, I think it's a majority of the power produced by the TVA comes from nuclear and hydro, which is amazing. And you're going to have the residents who are going to be faced with potentially significantly increased utility bills. I mean, just here in Alabama, the difference is stark. Folks up like us, up in North Alabama in Huntsville, we pay 30 to 40% less for the same amount of power as our neighbors to the south, who get their power from Alabama Power, a private utility.
A lot of that, by the way, has to do with how it's generated too. I mean, that's another side of it too. That you have nuclear power, and hydroelectrical, and stuff like that. It's generated differently too.
Well,
it's not just the structure.
But why? How is it that it was generated differently? Because the TVA was not set up as a profit-seeking company. Worried about like, oh, can we make sure that the next quarter we post a good profit? The TVA was set up as a federal government entity to serve the people of the Tennessee Valley, and so they were able to make these big investments in nuclear plants, in dams to generate nuclear and hydropower, which basically no private utility did. But the TVA did that decades ago because they have this, they as a government entity have a longer time horizon for these sorts of things.
Oh no, yeah, they can take bigger swings.
Like
it's same thing with the space.
Yeah.
Same thing with the space program. I mean, look, the minute they put a space tourism vehicle up in space and it explodes, the space tourism industry is in big trouble. I mean, the minute that happens, that's just the truth of it. The government can absorb risk, the government can absorb cost, and the government can do things that private businesses can't do. There's just no question about it. And I'll be the first to tell you guys this. And I've made this point a million times. I'm a conservative, yes. But to my friends on the left who say, "Oh, I thought you wanted a smaller government," every time they want to complain about something the government's doing, I say, "Well, I want good government." And everyone on the right says, "Oh, you're just a big government liberal." I say, "No, I'm for good government." I mean, that's. I'm not sure that this kind of falls into either of those. The TVA overall, as you just laid out, has been something that has been an overwhelmingly net positive. And I don't see like some sort of massive mismanagement here that requires us to do a change. Now, if you go and you look at some of this, it's based on a random power plant in Cheatham, Tennessee, that John Rich, the musician, didn't want in his county, and this is what's kind of triggering all of this. I don't care what John Rich thinks about anything. I don't know. You could tell me a song. Is this John Rich from Big and Rich? I think it is. So yes. I know that from college football. So that's about the only thing. Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy. I think it was Emily's wedding song. But other than those things, is that not true? I heard that.
It is. No,
okay.
It's not true.
Okay.
It was Spiral Staircase.
Okay, got it. Sorry. My mistake. But the point is, who cares what this guy thinks? You have some guys in Tennessee, Tim Burchett being one of them, a CNN darling who just destroys him at every opportunity. Don't know why they keep bringing him on. But he's one that's saying, yeah, let's go ahead and privatize it. But you have Chuck Fleischman, who represents the Chattanooga area, who's saying no. You have Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty, the senators, they're saying, not much saying anything. Haven't heard much from the Alabama folks on this as well. Where are they at?
Yeah, they haven't said anything about it. To my knowledge, I think that our labor council is going to be trying to put out something on this here soon, because we represent folks who work at the TVA as well, and so some of our members are upset about this, and it just does not make sense. I mean, like you said, not only is utilities are one of the places where there is just the connection is so obvious that you either that in every place in the country you either have the government is the utility or the government regulates the utility. And unfortunately, like we see down in South Alabama, the government is not doing such a great job of regulating Alabama Power, and they're able to get away with
I think you look at look at the Public Service Commission. And look at Alabama Power, and look at like you said, the constant increase in costs. And I'm not saying we don't see it here, because we absolutely do, but it is significantly higher. It goes up significantly more. I mean, the argument for a private entity kind of falls apart when you look at just that. When you look at just that, it kind of falls apart. Now, is there an argument to be made? I haven't heard it. That it will lower costs for consumers if they do this. If they can lay that out, maybe they'll have something here that they can go off of. But as of this point, them being mad about a natural gas plant in their backyard, I don't know if that's good enough. If I wanted to make an argument for my problem with the TVA, it is the building of nuclear power plants and not firing them up. Like that's the one I would look at, and the pushback against trying to get those going. That's where I would be, because you could lower costs that way as well. But it just seems like they don't want to go down that path as of this point. But Donald Trump has said he wants to focus on more of that. I think this is just a short-term Donald Trump shiny thing. That's what I believe. I don't think this is really going anywhere. What do you think?
I hope so, because I don't think there is the reason that this started up is because Trump was apparently pressuring the TVA board members to fire the TVA CEO. But I don't, and Trump has previously
why? What was the reason?
Well, the reason so far has been speculated a lot about this Cheatham County. That's been something that's been discussed, but I don't think Trump has actually verbalized I want to privatize the CEO right now. He has in the past, but I think that his trying to fire the CEO, coupled with the kind of characters who are pushing for this, coupled with his past statements, are the reason that this is a concern for people. And so we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on it. Obviously, we're going to be trying to talk to some folks who work at the TVA to talk about how good it is on the program. And but because it is such a I think it's viewed very positively, and I think that people are happy. I don't, like you said, I don't think there are problems that people have that, they don't go to bed thinking, man, the TVA is just not good enough. I want something better. I think people are pretty satisfied, and he's going to face significantly more pushback if he tries to move forward with the plan.
Yeah, I think in the first term, his argument was the guy makes too much money. I mean, that was sort of
which
the
is
thing, which is hilarious coming from Donald Trump.
Because if you privatized it, his salary would go further up. There's no situation where the TVA gets privatized and the CEO makes less money. That's just ridiculous. It's stupid.
And I'm surprised that you and the president aren't on the same page on this, because you're normally guy here telling me about the multiples of salaries that the CEO has over the average worker and stuff like that. You're not mentioning that.
Well, I mean, what is this? I don't even. It's like $1 million or something.
Oh, it's way more than that. Way more than that.
10?
It's an exorbitant salary. When I say exorbitant, it's a lot of money. I don't have the number in front of me, but it is one of the things. And when I found out about it last time, I was like, damn, that guy makes a lot of money. that was my first thought. But it doesn't matter. I don't care about that. We'll talk about the job, and you laid it out earlier. The percentage of, look, I can hear him Googling it right now. But
it's 1.2 million.
I thought it was more than that. There's something else. There's a compensation above that.
Okay, 10.5 million.
There you go.
I mean,
so the point that I'm making here is that it seems to me that the TVA is doing exactly what it's meant to do, and anyone screaming for the privatization of it doesn't really make any sense to me. So I other than the plant shouldn't be in my backyard. I'm sorry, but that's where this all started.
Which sounds like, and it's funny that it's a conservative guy fighting back against a natural gas plant. I thought like the liberals were the ones that hated natural gas, and like
nobody wants it in their backyard. I don't want it in my backyard either. I want it in your backyard. I mean, it doesn't. I'm just that's just an honest position. So I don't see much of a problem with it. All right, let's move on past that. I don't think this goes anywhere. And you laid out the the 30 to 40% less that we pay for power than we do from Alabama Power and all that. And look, people talk about Alabama Power and their role in the state of Alabama. Here's another thing for you. You notice that it has no impact on North Alabama. Do you notice that? Do you notice that Alabama Power has no impact on what goes on in North Alabama? And I don't mean that their power in other parts of the state don't impact what goes on here, but it's not an issue here. And that's another reason why we might want to keep this out.
Exactly, because one of the things that 30 to 40% higher utility bill pays for in the case of Alabama Power is for all of their political influence. They are the ones that pay for the Public Service Commission's campaigns. They fund a lot of people's campaigns. They make a lot of political donations. They fund consultants and spies and things like that. I mean, and the people of Alabama are paying for it. The TVA doesn't do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. You've got me. We're on the same page on this one. Jacob Morrison, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Up next, we have a pre-recorded interview with the president of the Professional Firefighters of Alabama. After that, we are going to take a short break, but we will be back very soon after that, so stick around.
We have on the line David Harrer, president of the Professional Firefighters of Alabama and a member of the International Association of Firefighters, IAFF Local 1853, right here in Huntsville, Alabama. Brother Harrer, welcome to the Valley Labor Report. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. We've been talking for a while, and you've known Adam for years. Y'all go way back. So really excited to finally have this conversation. Let's start, I guess, at the beginning. I think that makes sense for a place to start. How did you become a firefighter?
I know it seems kind of funny. It says I always just wanted to do this. I remember trying out when I lived back in Washington when I was 21, and never got hired on there. Just different career choices or changes and stuff like that, and tried back out again when I was 27, and I'm in my 22nd year now, and it's still the best job I ever had in my life.
That's fantastic. So you came from Washington, is that right? Are you not from Alabama?
Yes, sir. I was actually born and raised in Seattle, Washington. Lived there till I was 21.
Okay. Gotcha. What brought you to Alabama then? I'm curious.
Honestly, it was first wife.
Okay. Well, there you go. We're glad to have you. It's Washington's loss, I think, that we got to keep you.
Even after separation, I didn't want to move back. Alabama's the place I've been since. Never thought about moving anywhere else.
Well, that's great. We're glad to have you. Very big fixture here in the community and in the state. And so you're, like I said, you're president of the state, firefighters union, and you're also a member of the local here in Alabama. Can you talk to listeners about the IAFF? What is that, and how do people join and stuff?
Well, you have to be what's known as a career professional firefighter to join the International Association of Firefighters. And they're based out of Washington, D.C., with our president, Ed Kelly, from Boston, and our secretary treasurer, Frank Lima, from Los Angeles. And I can't tell you exactly how many cities we operate. Pretty much every city has a paid professional department is represented by the International Association of Firefighters, and just over 350,000 members across the U.S. and Canada.
Wow, that is a lot. I didn't realize how many members it had, but I guess that makes sense. Like you said, I mean, even the IAFF represents firefighters, even in, deep red, typically you would think of as non-union jurisdictions. The IAFF typically has a local there. And so I guess that's not as surprising as maybe you would initially think, but 350,000 members across the U.S. and Canada, that's a lot of folks.
Yes, sir, it is, especially, and that's where, honestly, issues with labor needs to be in right to work states. Mm-hmm. I believe there's 26 states that are now right to work across the country. And Professional Firefighters Alabama, we represent 38 cities across our state. So,
do you know how many members y'all have in the state?
Just over 2,500.
Gotcha. And so that gets us to, being in Alabama and being in a right-to-work state, and not only in a right-to-work state, being in the public sector in Alabama, where, we've talked about this on the program before, in Alabama and other states like it, there are not there's no official right to collective bargaining. And so, you don't have a contract, like federal employees do or did at one point, or like people in the unions in the private sector do. And so what is that like? I guess just as a general proposition, what is it like to be a public sector union in a state like Alabama? How does that work?
Honestly, it's a blessing because with right to work, I mean, in collective bargaining states, you belong to your unions and your associations, but in Alabama, where you have to prove yourself, I find it to be a blessing. You really have to prove your work and the body of your work and your passion for what you do to make sure that you have member or people joining your association or your local. It's one thing that you constantly have to prove yourself, and with Alabama, you don't have to have a contract. We actually have one city in Alabama, Tala, has a contract. It's the only city we have. And I know that some, like our brothers in the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, they have memorandums of understanding, not set contract, but kind of understanding between management and their body. But no, I find it, very rewarding and challenging to work and maintain membership here in South or in right to work states, because at any moment, if someone gets upset or just doesn't like the way things, they just get back out without any kind of recourse whatsoever. So as a leader, it's very rewarding, very challenging. It keeps you moving forward.
Yeah, it keeps you on your toes. I think, there is something to that. I think that, I'm always impressed when locals have high density rates in right to work states. I know that ULA, just down the street from us, the machinists are the union there, and they're obviously same state as us. They're a right to work state, and they have like a 99% membership rate in the unit. And at least at one point, I don't know if this is still true, but at one point, the only people that were not members of the union were people that the union had expelled because they scabbed during the strike in 2019. And so I think, that's, I don't know, what is y'all's rate here in Huntsville and across the state? I don't know if you know across the state. That might not be something that you know off the top of your head, but what's it like in Huntsville?
Yeah, in Huntsville, I want to say density runs right around 75 to 80%. And on that is just based on, we've had a lot of recruiting classes in the last couple of years. Before, it would be 1 or 2 years before you'd have another, we call rookie or cadet school. Right. And so this year, I think Huntsville put out 3 of them with over 60 to 70 new hires just in the last year. But overall, most of our cities have a density, or most cities we represent have a density over 70 to 80%. I mean, I know Madison's shoot right at 70. Birmingham is 85%. But most of our cities that we represent are well above 50% as far as density.
That's great to hear. And so what do the, what is the day-to-day kind of stuff? If you're not, you don't have a contract, or at least most of your locals don't. You said that there was one that does, but if, the day-to-day sort of thing is not taken up by negotiating contracts and things like that, what does the union do from day to day?
Well, there's a lot of stuff you can do, especially in the fire service. Our health and well-being is always a major forefront for everything we do. So we can work on cancer initiatives to make our bodies healthier. Physical fitness routines. Lately, we've been coming on with peer support and resiliency classes. As far as treating our members with PTSD. Professional Firefighters Alabama in 2017 gathered in Birmingham. Was 27 people attended a peer support class, which turned into a peer support program across the state, which thankfully the Alabama Fire College took over, because we were completely overwhelmed, because we offered it statewide. And it started with 9 guys that were certified, and we had a couple guys that had over 90 contacts in such a short amount, within 3 months. So there's always something you can be doing to better the fire service instead of just as far as contracts. Like I said, there's cancer awareness, there's staying healthy, there's your mental aspects of it. One thing we want to start doing, and I believe I spoke with you before, is having a young firefighters conference, which, gets people involved instead of just sitting back until it's time to the president of the local or someone just it's time to retire and you don't know where to go. We want to get younger people involved and more active in their union to take those initiatives. That way, if there's a turnover, you just keep going without even missing a beat. There's a video I love, and I know you won't be able to show it, but if you ever look it up, it's Chad Smith from Red Hot Chili Peppers. They play him a song he's never heard before in his life. And it was, I can't remember the name of the band off the top of my head. And they gave him earphones and the music or the guitar and the voice. And they let him play the drums. And after 30 seconds, it was like he would play the song like he created the song. He didn't miss a beat. I believe that's what some of the labor should be like. With there's a turnover or someone retires, that no one skips a beat. It's like a natural thing. There's no learning turn. There's no learning process. So that's one of the things we also look to do is just getting our younger members ready to go when it's time for them to step up and be leaders in their locals.
Absolutely. I mean, fundamentally, what unions are is an organization of workers trying to make their lives better at work, typically as it relates to work, but even outside of work, we talked about just this morning how the Machinists Union and other unions in Texas are assisting folks that have been affected by the floods over in that state. And that's like a super common thing that unions will raise money for their members that have been affected by natural disasters and things like that. And so when you think about it like that, as that a union is a group of workers that is dedicated to making their lives better, making their workplace better, then it's pretty clear, actually. There's a lot of stuff that you can do outside of, contract management, which is important, I think. I think it would be great. I think everybody should have the right to negotiate a good union contract, public sector or private sector. But if you don't, there's so much stuff that you can be doing, clearly.
Yes, sir. We actually, last year, we purchased a disaster relief trailer similar to other groups around Huntsville, around the state, because a funny thing about firefighters, when a natural disaster hits a certain location, be it hurricanes or tornadoes, the firefighter is actually not allowed to leave the station. They stay on duty until they give them the all clear. So when you have a tornado or hurricane that takes out a firefighter's house or roof, he can't even get away from the station to put a tarp on it. So we actually bought a trailer this year and have an agreement with Home Depot that we can stock certain things and go to that person's house and take care of them. We say this is a family here, and it truly is. It's my brothers and sisters. Every third day, I spend 24 hours with these guys. I'm closer with some of these guys, than I am, my cousins and my relatives. So there's a lot more you can do. Negotiating is a very, very important thing because at the end of the day, you have to make a good living to do what you want to do. But there are a lot more things you can do besides that to better firefighters' lives. And as well as when you do that, hopefully it carries on to the next generation of firefighters.
Absolutely. One of the things that y'all were able to do, and this has been a while ago, but I think this is how you met Adam. There was a big fight to save the retirement systems of Alabama. Would you mind telling us just, the Cliff Notes version of what happened there?
I will. It's actually, and Adam, thank you for being involved and stuff like that. I was thinking about that today. There's two things you can bring to a fight, being passionate and educated. And when we did that, Adam was both of them, and he was great to work with. But at the time of this, certain groups were going around the country, going to certain pension systems that had bad years or had a low funding ratio, and trying to change them to a lower plan, less of a benefit when you retire, to basically make money off of. Right now, with retirement systems in Alabama as a whole, when we make a trade, it's treated as one trade. In 401k plans or a cash balance plan was what they were trying to propose for the state. Each person has an individual account, so now there's a commission being based off 187,000 people instead of just the one. And of course, it goes to line their pockets. At the end of the day, you may not end up with enough to retire or work to your 75. But they were going through certain states to make those changes, and they were very successful in Kentucky, and they changed their plan. But when they came here, they came armed for that year. It was, well, I won't say armed, but they prepared. They brought 16 lobbyists from DC and New York and Los Angeles, and they all went down to Montgomery and tried to lobby to make these changes. And the way this issue started, or the defense of it, was kind of funny, because although we gained steam and we had thousands of people supporting this because we proved them wrong, it started with 2 firefighters, myself and Jeff Statham. And when we walk into a meeting, it's 2 firefighters against 16 lobbyists, accountants, financial people, and we're trying to tell them, no, they're wrong. The firefighters are right. And they're kind of looking at this, this hesitancy, like, so you mean tell me you're smarter than the guy who came here from New York, whose livelihood is making numbers? I'm like, yes, sir, it was. And we started gathering. People started rallying around us. Adam being one of them with his association, and it all came to be honestly a truly amazing thing. And I've said this before, that I don't think that if it happened the way it happened, I don't think it could happen in many other states other than Alabama, because the passion, the pride that people in this great state have for themselves. And so we gathered around, and it got to be where they realized that after all this, we were educated and we were passionate. And when we started speaking to our legislators, it wasn't just, don't change my retirement, please. We gave them numbers.
Right.
And slowly we found like certain flaws in the stuff that they were having, because, now it's a common thing now when you look at like ALEC or others organizations across this country. Now you can find their cookie cutter legislation online. You basically fill in the state and you go from one to one. By the time it was a rarity, and we had all that information already. And it was an awesome thing. We still, with Save RSA Retirement on Facebook, we're still the largest group in this country dedicated to pension resist or pension fighting for our pensions. We have over 60,000 followers that are active, and we still, to this day, approve every person. You don't just get to click and join the group.
Right.
So it was a great thing, and they haven't been back since. And I hope if they come back, they're going to find that same passionate, educated group. But it was truly an amazing thing to be part of. When you have when some of the professors that were advocating for these groups out of Troy University, giving these numbers, and we flooded the chancellor's office at Troy University, where, we thought about sending flowers to the secretary who was answering the phone all day, because she said it was just one phone call after another.
Right.
It was really a great thing.
Yeah, it's really a cool example of how just normal working people can beat back some of these attempts to take money from people. Is fundamentally what it was about. It was taking money from hardworking teachers and firefighters and putting it into the pockets of some bigwig, managing a hedge fund, and that's not what most people anywhere in the country would want, including folks in Alabama. So I'm really appreciative of the work that you did, obviously for your members, but for for the state too. I think that gets us about where I wanted to be. So, Brother Hare, I don't know, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we let you go?
I'm sure once I hang up, I'll think of something. But a funny note about the end of the battle for the retirement systems was the lobbying firm had 16 members I think it was 2016. In 2017, the lobbying firm was down to 1 member, and they were renting an office space from the retirement systems of Alabama. So I thought that turned out to be very funny.
That's fantastic. So it ended up you took money from them, and that's a great. That's fantastic. I love that. Brother David Hare, president of the Professional Firefighters of Alabama, member of IAFF Local 1853 here in Huntsville. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me, sir.
All right. We'll talk soon.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
Since 1889, the National Association of Letter Carriers has protected the rights of city carriers as they deliver the mail and offer support for their community. The Alabama State Association of Letter Carriers makes their legislative voices heard when it comes to issues involving the U.S. Postal Service and the working members of the union. The National Association of Letter Carriers has been longtime supporters of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Association of Letter Carriers. To learn more, visit NALC.org. Unite Here is also a supporter of the Valley Labor Report. They are a labor union that represents 300,000 working people across Canada and the United States. Their members work in the hotel, gaming, food service, manufacturing, textile, distribution, laundry, transportation, and airport industries. You can learn more about Unite Here at unitehere.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no coal. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
From the mountains of Tennessee to the bayous of Louisiana, broadcasting online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, Huntsville, Alabama, this is the Valley Labor Report. I am Joe Harrison, the graphic designer and video producer for the Valley Labor Report, joining you today as your temporary host, while Jacob and Adam are both out of town. Once again, I'm just going to say that typically when I have done the temporary hosting, that has meant that it is a compilation show, a clip show, but today we actually have a bunch of new material to show you that we hope you'll stick around for and we think you'll enjoy. If you want to be a part of the program today, well, unfortunately you can't because this is all pre-recorded, but you can still call and leave a voicemail. That line is open all week. You can call and leave a voicemail at any time. The number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. Leave us a voicemail. We do review all voicemails and we may play and react to it on the next live program. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time we finish up today, or you just want to track with us throughout the week to see what we're up to, you can find us anywhere you find anything online, but we encourage you to check out our website, specifically tvlr.fm. But of course, you can also find us on YouTube and Facebook and basically wherever you get your podcasts, all at the Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder that your support keeps us on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners. So if you want to become a sustaining member or make a one-time donation, we encourage you to go to tvlr.fm/donate, or you can also go to patreon.com/the Valley Labor Report. I just want to mention real quick that if you are a member of a union, we encourage you to talk to your local about sponsoring the show, and that is something you can reach out to us for more details on. Let me add a quick disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in the program belong solely to their authors and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor or the Valley Labor Report as a whole. Whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or listening to us on WVNN, WSMP, WGOW, WZZA, wherever you're listening to us, we are happy to have you. Also, you can check us out on the Labor Radio Podcast Network. We are very happy to be part of that network, and we really appreciate all of our listeners, no matter where you're joining us from today. As most of you know, and it will be made clear with today's video, unpolished as it is, we are not media professionals. We are just a few die-hard unionists who want to amplify the voices of the working class in the American South in particular. We're hoping this project can make a difference on that front, and we just simply can't do it without you. We want to thank everyone for tuning in, whether you are a loyal fan or someone who's just curious or even, a hater. We're happy to have you, and we appreciate you spending some time with us today. As mentioned, we've got a lineup of great clips for you today and pre-recorded segments. First off, we've got an interview from America's Workforce Union podcast with Dave Cann talking about union resilience amidst federal workforce challenges, which is a very relevant and important topic right now. Following that, we have Rick Smith, Teamster, who is of course, from the Rick Smith Show. If you're a Teamster, I'm sure you know about that, and we are always happy to get in touch with him. He joins us to talk about himself, his work, talk about the current political moment, and then later on in the show, he will be talking more broadly about the Teamsters, so you'll definitely want to stick around for overtime for that. After this interview with Rick Smith, we're going to take a short break, and then we will be back right after that. So without further ado, let's roll this, and we will see you on the other side of the break.
Let's go to line number one. Welcome our featured guest. Been on the show a number of times, and I'll tell you, so many people, especially in the federal sector, dealing with unions, have a really, really tough job right now. And one of them is David Cann. David is the Director of Organizing for the American Federation of Government Employees. National website, lots posted there. afge.org, afge.org. David has been with the union for 12 years, 4 years as Director of Organizing. David, welcome back to the show. The last time you and I had a conversation, well, it was a good conversation. You were talking about how so many people said, I have to join the union because Trump is taking office in a couple of weeks. Well, that was back in January. A lot of things have changed since then, brother. Maybe you could fill me in on how everything is going at the AFGE. Talk to me about it. Go ahead.
Well, we're in the fight that we knew was coming. When we last talked in January, tons of people were joining to protect their jobs and to protect their rights against attacks that had been promised. And we grew, I think, 9% in the first 2 months of the year. And everybody that joined the union was bracing for attacks that have come. There have been efforts through DOJ and through Russell Vote's OPM to try to strip away agencies and get rid of jobs. They've attacked union rights through national security exclusions, trying to say that it's unlawful for federal employees, over 1 million federal employees, to be members of labor unions, and have mounted extraordinary attacks. But the people that came to the union because they wanted to have a voice and wanted to fight back together. And we've had a lot of success in those efforts. We kept winning in court. The Supreme Court has lifted the injunctive relief that we had been provided. So they've allowed a lot of these layoffs to go forward. But I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to fight back against them, because as we've mobilized, we've talked about how important the work federal employees do is to the American public. And it's something that they've seen in ways that hadn't been visible in the past. And as a result of that, DOGE has become septic. Elon Musk has left. They no longer talk about the attacks on federal employees under that umbrella. They now talk about it as layoffs under OPM. And at the VA, where they're planning to have 80,000 layoffs and get rid of 80,000 people that provide care to veterans in communities all across the country, they've walked away from that, saying that just normal attrition, normal people walking away from the agency and leaving the agency understaffed will be sufficient. It is my hope that as federal employees continue to raise their voice, we're going to be able to push back against all of these attacks on the federal service, and it'll simply be untenable. It'll be too unpopular for them to move forward.
I'm glad you brought up the VA. I was just talking about that at the top of the show. And again, they wanted 80,000 employees. And this is when Musk was in charge, 80,000 employees to be gone. And this is an agency that, and David, I talked to many people at your union about this. They needed more people. They were down a couple of years ago, 50,000. And the process of getting, new hires is pretty cumbersome. There's a lot of vetting that goes on, and I get that. I understand that whole thing. But yeah, that was a win. So they basically, what I'm reading here, 53,000 jobs were saved, all because of people saying, you know what, you can't do this. And I have to ask you, are we done with that, or can we save some more jobs at this juncture? I mean, why is it like 50,000 jobs saved? Where did that number come from?
I think that's a great question. A great series of questions. I think the first thing that's worth pointing out is all of these attempts to strip down the federal government come from a place of misunderstanding or ignorance about the work that gets done. And when you read the interviews that have been done with DOGE employees that have spoken to the media without the permission of the administration, what it said is the federal government's incredibly efficient. There's very little waste. It's just a bunch of civil servants working hard. We've heard that about SSA, and we've heard that about VA.
Yeah.
And when they said they wanted to get rid of 80,000 employees, what they were saying was they want to get rid of people that don't provide frontline care to veterans. But if you understand how any organization works, in order for somebody to be caring for a veteran, somebody needs to be handling admissions. Somebody needs to be billing, outside providers. Somebody needs to be keeping the hospital clean. Somebody needs to be providing the food. So there is a network of people that support the work that gets done. And if you take away that network, the work can't get done. And it is true that historically there's been chronic understaffing at the VA. 50,000 unfilled positions under even friendly administrations that cared about making sure workers got what they needed and making sure that veterans received the care that they wanted. And so as we've raised our voice in communities that oftentimes are underserved in one of the few places that veterans can go to get medical care, they've realized this is something that they can't get away with taking away. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, while we look at this as a victory and are celebrating and have taken these 53,000 jobs that we've saved as something that is a result of federal workers raising their voice, I think we've got to say that understaffing and a drive towards privatization that still has the VA in its crosshairs is something we've got to fight back against as well.
Yeah, that's been the MO for years now, department by department. It's just chipping away. Well, let's do this. We can privatize this. We can privatize that. And next thing you know, and it doesn't save money. Dave, I can't tell you how many conversations I had on this show. People think that by privatizing that, the government is out of it. It's still our tax money. It's just going to a private contractor. Why doesn't that message get out more?
Well, we're doing our level best, and one of the things that I think they look at in their effort to privatize work is twofold. One is the rate of unionization is higher for federal and public employees, and so as they privatize, one of the things they can do is strip away worker protections. And weaken the labor force. The other thing I think they're thinking of is the politicization of the work, because federal and public sector labor unions oftentimes support candidates that are for pro-worker policies. And as they weaken our unions, they can push legislation and regulations that strip away worker rights. And they want to weaken the unions that support working people. And I think that is a consistent strain in the agenda for the march towards privatization.
You know, the sad part about this whole thing is the fact that Congress is just following every order that Trump gives. And I mean, obviously, the GOP has a majority in Congress. David, let me throw this at you. As director of organizing, I mean, this has to make your job all that more difficult, and the politics involved. If we can touch on that briefly, I know you're not involved in that. You have another person that deals with that over at AFGE. But the silence from so many people that are elected, and some are speaking out, you know, don't get me wrong. And obviously the GOP has a majority there, and they seem to be following everything that Trump wants, which is scary. And you've heard so many people say that, you know, we are now with an authoritarian regime in Washington right now. Can you speak to that? Because there's got to be a lot of people really concerned about the future of America right now.
Absolutely. I think my response to that would fall into two different categories. The first one is that it is true that that most of the folks in, I'd say, the politics and in the courts have walked away from their obligation to provide the checks and balances against the attacks on what is essentially American people from this administration. But there have been those that have stood up as well. But more importantly, I think it focuses like a laser on the fact that the only people that are going to look out for the welfare of American workers is American workers. And we can delay attacks in the courts, and we can stymie bad legislation when possible in the halls of Congress. But at the end of the day, the power of the American people rests with the American people, and the best microphone they have is labor unions. And standing up and fighting against this stuff with their voices collectively is going to be the best way to do it.
Yep.
Because I think what's happening is, for all of the xenophobia and all of the false promises and all of the macho bravado that comes from the political attacks that have been promised, people are seeing that what's happening is they're attacking their neighbors and they're arming themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we've only got each other and our people power together to fight back. And I am very optimistic that folks are going to continue standing up and pushing back against attacks. And I think the workplace protections are, particularly for federal employees, are the tip of the spear in that effort. And we've seen folks get mobilized and stand up in ways they haven't in the past. And you get involved in the labor movement because you like to fight. We are in the fight.
Boy, we are. David Cann, our featured guest on the show today. He is the Director of Organizing at the American Federation of Government Employees. We'll continue with David. We'll talk more about organizing in the next segment. Later in the show, we're going to check in with Brad Acey, the Utah AFL-CIO. Now they, in the state legislature, public sector bargaining has been attacked. In fact, it's on hold right now because of the people in the state of Utah. The unions got together. That story later in the show. Once again, you're listening to America's Workforce. Back in a few minutes.
This is America's Workforce. It takes LiUNA to build North America's infrastructure. From roads and bridges to schools and skyscrapers, the men and women of LiUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, build the projects we depend on. From constructing the Freedom Tower on the site of the former World Trade Center to untangling Washington, D.C.'s congested interstate, LiUNA members do the work that matters. Find out what it takes to be built by LiUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Heat and Frost Insulators Labor Management Cooperative Trust. Find out more at insulators.org/LMCT.
There is unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining, atomic energy, and the service sector.
We are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Ironworkers. You can find more at ironworkers.org.
America's Workforce Radio is sponsored in part by the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 6, representing painters, glazers, drywall finishers, and sign and display industry workers. They remind you that belonging to a union is your right as an American.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by Broadstripes, the digital tool for union organizing and member communication at broadstripes.com.
This is America's Workforce. More shows available at awfradio.com.
And don't forget, you can check us out on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. And when you get an opportunity, here's what you do. Just sign up, receive our shows on a regular basis, and give us a rating. We always appreciate those 5-star ratings, so please keep them coming. Let's go back to our live line and rejoin our featured guest today, who's been on the show a number of times. Love talking to this guy. David Cann is his name. He's the Director of Organizing for the American Federation of Government Employees. Well, let's talk about that, David, because when we talked earlier in this year, AFGE had this drive to 325, and you surpassed it. A lot of people were joining because they knew what was coming with the Trump administration. Why don't you fill us in on the numbers right now? Because there's been a lot of firings. There's a lot of people that said, I'm not going to put up with this crap anymore. I'm leaving. I'm going to take an early buyout or retirement. So run down the numbers for me. What happened and what's the game plan moving forward? There's a lot to discuss here. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So our union grew because a lot of people wanted to be a part of the effort to protect their jobs and protect the federal service. So our goal had been to get 325,000 people in the union, and we were growing. We got over 331,000. When the administration decided that over 1 million federal jobs needed to be stripped of their ability to be in labor unions because of fundamental national security. So the people that do allergy research from the CDC, the people that do benefit processing at the VA, over 1 million people had to lose their union rights. And as a result, not only did they stop recognizing collective bargaining agreements, and stop processing grievances and allowing for people's rights to be recognized. They stopped processing people's dues payments. And so essentially everybody got dropped from the rolls. We suspected this attack would be coming and began an effort in earnest at the beginning of the year to move everybody over from payroll dues deduction, where the agency would have their hands on the power switch, over to direct dues. And so when we explained, we don't want this agency to have power over your ability to have a voice on the job, your ability to be a member of the union and to fight back, we moved over 130,000 people off of payroll dues deduction onto direct pay in the first 100 days because they wanted to stay a member of the fight. And if we hadn't, our union wouldn't be here. But we were prepared when they dropped people's membership, and we made sure that this administration didn't have a say as to whether or not people had a voice on the job and whether or not people were a union, because the union is the workers, and that's not something the employer had the right to take away. And so as a result, we're standing and fighting. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to win these fights.
So just to be clear, how many union members do you have right now at AFGE? Because you did some shifting here, and I just want to get that number clear. Where do we stand?
We stand over 220,000.
Okay. And it could have been a lot worse. That's what I'm hearing in this conversation then?
It could have been, and we're continuing to migrate folks over. We're in the midst of it, and what it comes down to now is fundamental organizing, having one-on-one conversations with folks about the importance of, making sure that the workplace is fair and protected, and getting them back into the fold. And my hope is, and not only going to grow back to strength we had at the beginning of the year, but beyond that, because the times call for it.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people in the federal government that, are getting the benefits of the union, but they're not paying for it. And that's exactly what's going on right now, because the way it's set up right now, it's almost like it is pretty much a right to work shop. You're getting a free ride. So you're going to target a lot of the people right now. And I know you've been very successful at that prior to Trump, taking over the second time. And you've been like setting up parties and meet and greets and that kind of thing. So is that strategy what's going on and will continue to go on from this point on, right?
It is, and we've been innovating different ways to recruit folks virtually. We have people now that we have people joining the union directly online. What we found is that having a conversation with an organizer or a union officer on occasion has been an unintentional barrier to membership, and that we've had tens of thousands of people join simply because they want to be a part of the fight, and all they had to do was drop it into Google, look up their workplace union, and join. So our outreach is a combination of workplace events, digital outreach, which has taken a bunch of different manifestations, peer-to-peer texting, phone banking, one-on-one conversations, community events. We're leaving no stone unturned, and we're making sure that everything we do is focused at people making sure they find their power in the union. And we're far from done.
Yeah. Well, you got to hang in there, because this has been a blow for so many people. I think a lot of people knew that the second Trump administration was going to be brutal. They had 4 years to think about what they could do that they didn't do in the first administration. But to your point, you were very prepared for what was about to come. In closing here, David, would you say that this has galvanized the people that are left there? I mean, you lost some people. You're doing a lot of shifting right now with the e-dues and all that. I get that. You're doing organizing, but because of these attacks, it's almost like, the big bully. If you let the bully continue, well, he's gonna beat you down, okay? But if you fight back, and that's exactly what you're doing at AFGE, things are going to change. And obviously, look what happened with the VA, what we talked about in the first segment. Galvanizing unions, though, and it's not just AFGE, all unions right now. What's your answer to that?
Yeah. Well, one thing for a start is we have been humbled by the fact that the entire labor movement has been by our side in this fight. Everybody understands that this administration's attack on working people is broader than the federal service. And when they see the attacks that are coming for federal employees, they realize that's coming for everybody. And so all of the unions in the AFL, and even unions that aren't, have stood side by side saying that they want to fight back against this, which has been, I think, remarkable. The whole House of Labor is in solidarity right now. But more than that, every worker realizes that their voice is the only thing that can make a difference. And they're seeing that when they stand up, all of these policies are super unpopular. People don't want to see American workers and American services stripped away. And from the budget bill that just got passed to the Supreme Court decisions that are raining down on top of us, to these attacks on federal workers, it's just Americans getting harmed by this administration. It's a war on Americans. People want to be a part of fighting back against that. And the federal workers that are in the fight are focused like you wouldn't believe right now. And whether it's rallying against bad legislation, marching on the boss, against bad workplace conditions, or fighting back against these proposed layoffs, the plans are keeping secret because they know how unpopular they would be. folks that I think are ready to fight. And I think at the end of the day, we can count on winning most of these fights because Americans want to stand together and see themselves protected. Americans want a voice on the job. Unions are more popular than they've ever been, and that's because they're more necessary than they've ever been. And it's a joy to be standing shoulder to shoulder with 827 federal employees in AFGE that want fairness on the job.
Amen to that. David, you're awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. David Cann, Director of Organizing at the American Federation of Government Employees, one of the many sponsors of America's Workforce. You got a voice here on America's Workforce. Stay in touch with us. Anything you need, you let us know. Okay, brother?
Thanks so much.
We're joined now by Rick Smith, a working Teamster and host of The Rick Smith Show. Also been named Talkers Magazine Heavy 100 for the third year in a row. Rick Smith, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
I appreciate you taking the time. I know that you're a very busy guy, and I just want to let you talk about that for a moment because, like I said, you're a working Teamster. You still drive a truck, and you do a daily radio program that is also on TV and is one of the top 100 talk radio programs in the country. How do you do that? That's crazy.
I don't sleep a lot. No, look, ask any union member. They're used to getting things done, and that's what we've been doing on a huge basis. Just work and keep going.
Absolutely. How many radio stations are you on again? Isn't it 50 something?
Right now we're on just about 50. We cover the entire state of Wisconsin. We cover good portion of California. We do pretty well, and I'm pretty happy with where we are. And the reality is we're on virtually every radio station in the country that a program like ours can be. If I were to flip sides and be a right winger, could easily be on 1,000 stations.
Right.
Because that's the kind of dominance that they have in this arena. And I like to point out that we're on Talkers Magazine's Heavy 100, and that 95 other members of that 100 list hate workers, hate unions, and wake up every day figuring out how they're going to destroy them.
Right. Yeah. It's like you, Tom Hartman, and like one or two other people that are not vicious right wingers on the top 100. It's really dismal looking through that list.
No, because at the end of the day, and you know this as well as anyone, this is a tough gig to do. And this is incredibly difficult when you're talking about limited funding streams. And it's even more incredibly difficult to do when you talk about an advertiser-based system where we got to go beg corporate America for funding to run TV ads or radio ads or any of that stuff. When you're talking about, I want the CEOs to make or pay higher taxes. I want corporate interests to pay higher taxes. Look, Walmart is never going to advertise on my program. When I say, hey, I want your workers to make a living wage. I want them to get health care. I want them to get retirement. I want them to have job security. I want those profits shared a little bit. And I want the Waltons, the people who are the 6 of the top 10 richest people in this country. I want them to not exist in the fashion that they're in now. That doesn't get you a lot of ad dollars.
Yeah, that's it's super surprising that doesn't get you a lot of ad dollars. But no, we face exactly the same. I mean, our only sponsors are unions and a couple of union side law firms. And I think that your sponsor list is exactly the same. So
it is. And I don't beg people for $1 or $2 at a time. So the model on the left has always been here, my hands out. And I don't believe that's the right model. I don't believe it's the right model to be begging people with pledge drives every 5 minutes to try and keep your lights on. I think that there's a message here. I think working people, if they want to fund, clearly, if they want to donate to the shows, yours, mine, anyone, great. But I'm never going to outwardly beg because I think our message is powerful enough to carry its own weight. And I think needed by the very people who we'd be begging. So it seems counterproductive to me. But other people have their model and you go that way.
Right. Yeah, well, I've always admired your project. I think it's really cool, and appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. I wanted to start off with just some really basic, like, unions are good. And you've got a story that you recently put out on a blog, laborstrong.live. The title of the blog post is "How My Union Saved My Family After My Wife's Near Fatal Accident." It's a really, a really terrible story in, kind of the human impact of it. And no doubt you're still going through that. But there are some things that you being a Teamster has made easier for you. And so could you talk to us about, like, kind of what's in the article?
Well, for years, I've talked about the fact that health security is paramount. Every person in this country should have the security to know that if something happens, they're going to be at least financially okay. And I've talked about it for years. My daughter fell and broke her arm, and at no point did I care what the costs were going to be. My goal was to get her the care she needed. The same thing with my wife. When the state trooper showed up to our house and said that my wife was being flown to Hershey Med Center, not 1 second, not one thing popped into my mind of how are we going to pay for this? Oh, what's going to happen? Immediately, got where I had to go and did what I had to do. But as the weeks, the months have gone by, my health insurance, the health and welfare fund that has my insurance, they were more than just the people who paid the bill. They were the folks who gave me direction when I needed it. They were folks who empowered me to demand better when facilities were saying, well, we're going to do this to you. A perfect example, we went to the rehab hospital, one of the top rehab hospitals in the state. And they said, well, your normal stay is about 16 days. Now, my wife is completely paralyzed. She's not moving. And I'm like, 16 days seems awful short.
Mm-hmm.
So they came back to us at the beginning of December, said, we're going to discharge her. Where do you want her to go? And I go, nowhere. She's staying right here. And the doctor said that the best place for her was in this rehab hospital, which is a bizarre situation when you have a physician who can hold two thoughts in his head at the same time. One, this place is the best place for her. And two, no, you can't stay.
Right.
Well, my health insurance, my health and welfare fund said, no, we want her to stay there. In fact, they called the hospital and said, it's in our best interest she stays. Now, again, as a union member, I'm always empowered to stand up and say no. I'm always empowered to stand up and fight back when I think something is wrong. And this is that situation as well. So between me and our health and welfare fund, my wife got to stay in that rehab hospital, not December 6th, when they wanted to kick us out, but the middle of February. So she got an extra couple of months. And when we were discharged, they basically said she would never walk again. And our fund paid for in-home therapy to come every day to help. So today she's walking.
Wow.
Our problems are cognitive. We got a long road there, but all of the things that they told us along the way weren't going to happen have happened. And it's mostly in part because of our insurance that has given me the ability to demand everything that she needs, everything that she's earned, and everything she deserves. And I think every worker, and I didn't write the story because of, hey, look what I've got, or
Right.
How lucky I am. I wrote this as a tale to people go, look, bad stuff happens. All of us encounter bad things. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And in that moment of need, my union was there to stand beside me with insurance, with making sure that my job is secure, because I haven't worked since the accident. I've been on leave so I can take care of her. But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
When I'm ready to go back, that job will be there. My seniority will be intact, and I will pick up seamlessly. And when I talk about this, I'm not bragging. I'm not, again, trying to say, hey, look how wonderful I am.
Right.
I want this for everybody. That kind of security to know I'm not going to go broke. I don't have to take second fiddle. I don't have to do what I'm told is the next step in the flow chart. So for me, that's why I wrote this story, because I want people to understand that unions are more than just wages. It's about the benefits, it's about the backing, it's about the empowerment that we workers get from being part of a union with a contract, a strong contract that gives us this ability to fight for our families. You know, wages, hours, conditions, absolutely. But the benefits of health security and retirement security, those seem to go by the wayside in a time where they really shouldn't.
Absolutely. It's such a, I mean, like I said, I've been thinking about you a lot over the last few months, and I'm glad to hear that your wife has been, on the road to recovery, still a long way, but been doing better than I think the prognosis was, and in no small part due to, your union health insurance. And it's, people get weird about talking about compensation or benefits or whatever, because we are conditioned to think about everything, I think, as an individual and as a result of what we have done. And the reality that so many people either don't recognize or refuse to recognize is that so much of what happens to us, it really is out of our hands. And recognizing that and recognizing that we can take more power over what happens to us if we are in a union, and we, it empowers you to be able to stand up and get what you deserve, like you said.
No, absolutely. And I've gamed this out in my head. If I weren't a union member, what would I have had? Well, I would have had an 80-20 insurance plan. Which would bankrupt me. We're talking about $5 million to this point in billed health care. $5 million. 20% of $5 million is probably more money than I've made in 10 years. Right. And more than I'm going to make the rest of my working life. So that bankrupts us immediately. And then I think about, the job. Do I have to go back to work? Who's going to take care of her? Because she can't be left alone. She needs constant supervision, constant care. What happens to her? Do I have to put her in a nursing home? Do I have to deal with that just so I can keep a job, to keep the health insurance that I have? There's just so much bad here that every working person in this country really are on that potential desperation train if one bad thing happens, like happened to me at 9 o'clock on a beautiful Thursday morning in September.
Right. I appreciate you sharing that with us, and folks can check it out again at laborstrong.live. How my union saved my family after my wife's near-fatal accident. I wanted to talk to you about some more general stuff. You're on the Talkers Magazine Heavy 100 list, and a lot of what you talk about is politics and the kind of the news of the day. And I'm curious what you're making of the first 6 months of the Trump administration. And maybe even more than that, I'm interested in what your understanding is of your audience's reaction to it.
Well, I think my audience was prepared. And I get this from people all the time of, hey, Rick, you were right. Oh, my God, we should have listened to you during the election. Because nothing that's happened thus far has really been surprising, especially considering they wrote it all down in Project 2025. So we knew it was coming. We knew labor was going to be front and foremost in the attacks. We knew AFGE and the federal unions were going to be first in the canaries in the coal mine, so to speak. We knew what they were going to do with the Department of Labor, and they've done exactly what they were going to do. We're going to gut OSHA. We're going to gut MSHA. We're going to gut all protections. We're going to deregulate, push for privatization, going to go after the Department of Education, going to do all this stuff. So no one can possibly go, oh, I didn't know this is what they were going to do, or this isn't what I voted for. No, this is exactly what you voted for. And you're getting exactly what you knew was coming. So if you're in this moment and you still think that you're on Trump's side, then you're okay. What I'm getting from people is a lot of buyer's remorse. I just wanted cheaper eggs. I wanted cheaper gas. Guess what? Eggs ain't cheaper and gas ain't cheaper. But you know what is happening? A lot of supports that a lot of working people need, like Medicaid. My situation, my wife's going to be on Medicaid at some point. Cutting almost $1 trillion from that is going to harm working families in irreparable ways. And we're going to see that. So on election night, I said, and I've been saying it since election night, the solutions for our future are going to come out of the suffering due to their savagery. We're watching their savagery. That big nightmare bill is pure evil savagery. It's anti-Jesus on steroids, brought to us by people who love the Jesus. And for me, I think we have to go through this. I think as a people, we have to go, yeah, we're going to get beat up a little bit. We haven't hit rock bottom yet. And maybe then you go back to the old labor frame. When stomachs get empty, heads get right. I think that's unfortunately where we have to go.
It really is unfortunate that seems like where we're heading. I mean, one of the starker bits of data about that bill that is going to stick with me forever is that if you take away all the tax cuts for people that make over $500,000 in a year, which is like, you're doing really good if you're making $500,000 a year. If you take away just the tax, you keep it for literally everybody else. Everybody else keeps the same tax cuts. You remove it for people making over $500,000 a year. You can remove all of the cuts to Medicaid and SNAP, and the impact on the deficit is exactly the same. And so it really shows you how much of this bill is just taking money from the poorest people in the country and giving it to the richest people in the country, and still making the deficit even worse, which is the biggest kind of crazy thing to me, that they were able to make this happen. Because, the whole reason supposedly for wanting to do these big budget cuts is, to protect, we got to bring the deficit down, Well, you cut taxes so much that it's not going to bring the deficit down. It's going to make it worse, and poor people are going to be worse off. It's literally the worst of both worlds. And I don't know how, they kind of live with themselves, the people who voted in favor of this.
Well, they eat fairly well. They're not the ones who, when they go to the cupboards, like when I was a kid, you go to the cupboards, there's nothing there. They're not the ones who are going to have to look their children in the eye and know that their children are hungry. They're not going to be the ones who have to look at the veterans who are going to still be homeless. They're not the ones who are going to have to deal with veterans who aren't going to get the care that they need because they're cutting more people from the VA. They're not the ones who have to deal with the unwashed masses, the rabble. We, the working class, we're good enough to clean up, and we were essential when they needed us. But we're moving towards post-human. We're going to AI and robotics, everything's going to be automated. Don't need dirty workers anymore. So this is predictable. And look, they ran on this stuff. We knew what they were going to do, and every time Republicans get power, what do? They enrich the wealthy. And look, I'm not. The Democrats mess up a lot too. But they're not the Republicans who have created the largest wealth class in the history of humanity while increasing poverty, while telling me that they love the Jesus. The same Jesus that I grew up believing in, who said that, you feed the hungry, you clothe the naked, you give shelter to the homeless, care for the sick, the poor, the downtrodden. The only time you saw any anger is when he flipped over the tables with the money changers. And you got money changers who evidently the new Christian Jesus would be enriching them while kicking poor people and lepers to their curb. Because I guess the only thing I can come up with is they want poor people to meet Jesus faster. So if they die sooner, they can go to heaven faster. We can clear out all these poor people, all these disabled people, all the folks who are draining our system. But we're going to keep the billionaires. We're going to keep the Musks and the Bezoses and those folks because, of course, we need them. They do all the work.
Right. Well, when I was growing up, I grew up in a very conservative evangelical type of faith community. But fortunately for me, it was not a political community. And in fact, most of the congregation didn't vote. As a matter of, it wasn't necessarily like from the pulpit, you shouldn't vote, but it was kind of that sort of thing. Like it's kind of worldly to vote a little bit. And so fortunately the politics weren't super important to them. But, a lot of the people that I grew up around, they were conservative and they were conservative politically. And some of the things that are happening right now are things that they would have advocated for, like immigration enforcement or maybe, less welfare or whatever. But there was at least like a facade that, this is, it's kind of like this is just the way that it has to be. And we need to feel sorry for them we need to feel sorry for the poor people as we're making them poorer, or we need to feel sorry for the immigrant as we deport them and things like this. But at least there was a sliver of a recognition of their humanity, right? As we're going to do all these terrible, and that's just gone. Yeah, that's just totally gone. And you're seeing like people in the White House making memes of crying women who are being arrested by ICE agents, and it's just like, it's funny. They're making chain gang ASMR. It is sick, satanic, demonic, antichrist kind of stuff, and it's just not phasing the Christians. It's so bizarre to me. What do you make of that?
Well, I make the fact that religion has really, I grew up in the Catholic Church in the 70s. And at that point, it was all about peace and social justice. Priests were walking the picket lines. It was all about caring for the poor, the downtrodden. It was all about lending that hand. Now, the Catholic Church, they were all about greed and lining their pockets. But at least the message was to take care of each other. It was communal, as I remember. Now we've gone through the Reagan era. We've gone these years since, and it's hyper individual. We now have prosperity gospel. I'm doing well because I'm ordained or blessed from God to have all of these wonderful things. And if something bad happened to you, it's because God's angry with you. So, I actually had someone email me and told me that the reason my wife was in the accident is because of my politics. And I said, I would like your home address. I will come wherever you are. And I want you to say that to my face.
Yeah.
Because, I think people in the age of the internet are allowed to be the worst versions of themselves. I think social media is a cesspool where people are absolutely the worst versions of themselves just to get attention. And I think religion is kind of turned in that vein. That the prosperity gospel. I'm ordained by God to be rich, and anybody who stands in the way of that, has to be dealt with. So I'm in this weird spot because I want religion, I want Christianity to be what I believe it was, something that made us want to be better people instead of worse people. But you know what? I watched them debate that bill. All of the people like Mike Johnson and all of them huddled up in a circle, like having their prayer while figuring out how to literally take food out of the mouths of children.
Yeah.
And you go, I hope there is a God, and I hope there is a judgment day, and I hope I'm standing there the day that those people have to be judged.
Right. Yeah. I mean, me too. That it is really, really, it's difficult to understand how they can kind of get where they are and keep that attitude. But that is what it is, I suppose.
Hey, this is Mike Strukin from the Labor Force Podcast. I'm proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network, with more than 200 labor radio shows and podcasts from across the country and around the world. The Labor Radio Podcast Network, where working people speak. Find us at laborradionetwork.org.
The Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama local workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact April at our training center to start the process at 256-904-1753. No experience is needed. We offer free training, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is our mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by the Communication Workers of America. Learn more at cwa-union.org.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by the United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, better known as the UAW. They are one of the largest and most diverse unions in North America, with members in virtually every sector of the economy. UAW-represented workplaces range from multinational corporations, small manufacturers, and state and local governments, to colleges and universities, hospitals, and private nonprofit organizations. The UAW has more than 400,000 active members and more than 580,000 retired members in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. You can learn more about the UAW and join at uaw.org. The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by Labor Notes. Labor Notes is a media and organizing project that has been the voice of union activists who want to put the movement back in the labor movement since 1979. You can learn more about Labor Notes at labornotes.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
Union leaders, do you want a powerful website and mobile app built just for your members? The Union Active system, created by Unions America, makes it easy to share news and documents, send alerts, and keep your members engaged anytime, anywhere. Trusted by thousands of unions, Union Active streamlines communication so you can focus on what matters most, your members. With real-time updates, secure messaging, and custom features built for unions, you'll keep your members informed and engaged 24/7. Get Union Active today. Visit unionactive.com to learn more. Union Active, the ultimate website and communication system for unions. If you're a union member, you may already know about Union Plus from getting reduced rates at hotels and car rentals, but Union Plus is now running its 5th annual sweepstakes, where union members can win cash prizes up to $40,000 or win a trip to New York City. Proceeds support Union Plus's mission to provide hardship grants, scholarships, as well as helping members access legal help and mortgage programs. There is no purchase necessary, but you must see the official rules at unionpowerusa.com to apply.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Joe Harrison, the graphic designer and video producer here at the Valley Labor Report. You can see my very professional setup here that clearly underlines how much of a media professional I am, and we are here at the Valley Labor Report. Thank you for spending some time with me today. I am filling in temporarily for Jacob and Adam, who are both out of town. As we're wrapping up with the main show here in preparation to go into overtime, I just want to give a couple reminders. First off, if you haven't already, I encourage you to sign up for our newsletters, tvlr.fm/contact. You can get the newsletter editions of Boss Watch and Last Week in Southern Labor. And I encourage you to do so because they often include extra material that is not read live in the show, whether because of time constraints or often we will get updates between the time that the show airs and when the newsletters go out. So it's definitely worth your time and worth your read, I think. So sign up at tvlr.fm/contact. Those newsletters will hit your email inbox every Monday and Tuesday. Also, once again, I just want to say we are very proud to be part of the Means TV network. And if you are not subscribed to Means TV, you should do it right now. And you can do it at a discount with a special discount price. That discount code is TVLR. You can get 20% off of either your first month or your first year. Definitely do that. I cannot recommend it enough. Means TV is a great network with just a lot of great media on it. And I'm not just saying that because we're on there. Definitely check that out and use that discount code. And once again, just a quick reminder that you can leave us a voicemail at any time throughout the week. We review all the voicemails and we may listen to and react to them in an upcoming live show. So that's 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can do it anytime, and we love to hear from you. So please, we definitely encourage you to do that. And of course, if you haven't, we encourage you to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook, TikTok, and I think we are also streaming on Twitch. So we're kind of expanding, which is really neat. And of course, you can subscribe to our podcast version of the show, which is basically available anywhere that you can get podcasts. Just look for the Valley Labor Report and we will show up. Again, if you would like to stick around with us for a bit longer, we do have the overtime segment coming up after a short break. But to the rest of you, we really appreciate your time. And we, of course, appreciate your feedback and your interactions. It just helps us tremendously. And we just could not do this without your support. So we really appreciate you taking the time to watch us or listen to us. If you're following along with us live or watching our daily videos or whatever it is, thank you so much for your support. And thank you for joining me today. And once again, stick around for us for overtime if you are not sated just yet. But for the rest of y'all, all power to the workers.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
This is Overtime, a production of the Valley Labor Report, the largest union talk radio and online news outfit in the South, coming to you from the heart of the Tennessee Valley in Huntsville, Alabama. We are run by working people and for working people in the South and all over the country. My name is Joe Harrison. I am the graphic designer and video producer for the Valley Labor Report, filling in temporarily for Jacob and Adam, who are both out of town. So I thank you for bearing with me today. If you would like to be part of the show, well, you can't do it today because this is all pre-recorded, but we do encourage you to leave a voicemail, 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can leave a voicemail at any time throughout the week. We review all voicemails and we may play and react to it in a future live broadcast. So up next, we have a couple of good clips. We have another segment from our interview with Rick Smith, Teamster from the Rick Smith Show, talking about more broadly the Teamsters. It's a really good discussion. After that, we have friend of the show, Courtney, on to talk about race and labor training, which is a very, very, very good and important discussion. So I hope that you will stick around for that. But without further ado, let's roll the discussion with Rick Smith about the Teamsters.
I had one other topic that I wanted to talk to you about, and it's a little shop talky. It's a little inside baseball. But, you know, we're a union radio program.
You're going to bring up O'Brien, aren't you? You're going to bring up Sean O'Brien, aren't you?
That's right. I know that
I can't burn this bridge anymore, so shoot.
I know that you and Brother O'Brien are great friends, and so We're a union radio program and you're a Teamster, and so I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of the state of the union, and something that has been difficult, for some folks in my audience. I think for me is that even as I have a lot of problems with Sean O'Brien and the things that he is doing, I think that there is also still probably a case that he's like the best president that the Teamsters have had in terms of organizing new members, and which is, something that really needs to happen. And so, I don't know, just generally, and I've got a couple of other like recent news items that I want to get your take on, but generally, what do you make of the presidency of Sean O'Brien as we look to the next election in 2026?
Well, full disclosure, I voted for Sean O'Brien because I thought we needed a militant leader. Mm-hmm. I thought we'd gotten a little lax under Hoffa Jr., but I thought we needed someone who was a young guy who's going to get out, a fighter who's going to get out there and fight the good fight. And look, what our unions are doing across the country, because understand the Teamsters union is not a top-down union. The Teamsters have a lot of local autonomy. So when you're seeing these organizing campaigns going on, this is the locals doing the work. So it's okay to take credit for it at the top, and because you've allocated resources in places and done good things, which I think O'Brien has done, and I think any leader will do. So I'm going to give the credit that you threw out there for the organizing to the locals who are out there doing the leather work on the pavement. I don't have a problem with O'Brien's leadership in making sure that resources go to certain places, other than, and I hear a lot of this, that like Trump, demanding of loyalty, absolute loyalty. Mine's a perfect example. I questioned his decision to go talk at the RNC. I questioned his decision to do the thumbs up at Mar-a-Lago. I questioned how he got from marching in the streets with Bernie Sanders and Sarah Nelson to, orange nosing down at Mar-a-Lago. So that has caused kind of a rift. And so I probably won't be voting for him in the upcoming election because I'm not really sure who's going to be in yet. I like Richard Hooker an awful lot. I think Richard would be a great guy to be president. I don't know that he's got the team yet to compete in 26. Because personally, I think, the war chest that O'Brien has built up through his travels, and I give the guy credit. The guy works his ass off. Yeah. He is everywhere. Granted, the Teamsters are picking up the bill, but he is everywhere. He's doing the shaking hands, kissing babies. It has been it'll be a 4-year campaign while in office. But I think he's doing some of the right things. My problem comes back to the politics, the messaging, the leadership that I see coming out of him, which, back in January, we find out that the International hired the face of the Charlottesville white nationalist movement. And you go, well, of course he did. When he first took office, he did a lot of things that I didn't like. He fired everybody via the Tuesday massacre via email at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. Wouldn't let anybody come back and get their things, said, we'll mail it to you. Then when there was a lawsuit, found out a lot of minorities got a lot of questions there that this election will clearly bring up. So I'm in this weird world because I like the militancy, but I don't necessarily like the politics. I think kissing up to Trump, not going to be helpful. He spent a lot of political capital to get Lori Chavez DeRemer as Secretary of Labor. Haven't really seen the benefits so much. Now, they haven't done the horrible stuff yet. They haven't undone the joint employer rule, which maybe you give O'Brien credit for that, or maybe you just go, they haven't gotten around to it yet.
Right.
Either way, I'm not thrilled with where the political capital is going, but we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, well, what was frustrating is, or one of the, lots of things have been frustrating, but one of the more recent frustrating things is, I can't remember who he was talking to on his podcast, but he was talking to somebody and he mentioned Biden killing a bunch of union jobs by stopping the Keystone XL pipeline. And this was, as
about 200,
200 jobs, which is, fine. You want to talk about that? Fine. Although it is worth noting, he's the Teamsters president, and what is a pipeline but the automation of truck driving, right? Because how is that oil going to get down here if it doesn't go through a pipeline? It's going to come by a truck. So it's like building the pipeline is killing your members' jobs. Anyway, he was talking about that as they were debating the one big beautiful bill, which is going to kill what the building trades union said is going to be the equivalent of killing 1,000 Keystone XL pipelines. Thousands of union jobs are going to be killed because of the ending of the clean energy tax credits. And so how do you even, mention Keystone XL pipeline against Biden and not talk about the disastrous job killing portions of this bill? I mean, the Teamsters haven't put out a statement about it, I don't think.
No. And what's interesting is I know people who have met Donald Trump. I know people who've had, business dealings with him over the years. And they all tell me the same. There's a common thread that he's able to make you feel special. That he could sell a woman in the desert wearing a white dress a ketchup popsicle. That he is that kind of a good used car con man salesman. There's part of me that goes, there was a transition, because in O'Brien's speech, he said something that made my ears perk up. He says, I've seen Washington change people. And I simply asked him if he looks in the mirror and that's the thought he has. Because again, how do you go from marching in the streets with Bernie Sanders and Sarah Nelson to, orange nosing? And all I can think of is, I don't know what was talked about at Mar-a-Lago. None of us do. I know he's got a podcast. I know he's probably making a good bit of money off of that. I know he did Tucker Carlson's. I know he's made this right turn with the union. I know there's a lot of stuff going on here that didn't jive with the guy that I voted for.
Right.
So, you could argue, and I have heard it, that, there's a financial incentive towards moving in this direction that is not necessarily what's in the best interest of the Teamsters. And it's more in what's the interest in Sean O'Brien.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, and I don't know. It's difficult for me to imagine he's making just a whole lot of money from this podcast. And somebody said something about
disclosures.
Oh yeah, well, we'll see. But I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it now. A video that came out 2 weeks ago. I mean, his videos are getting like less views on YouTube than our weekly live streams where we do and I'm just some guy, right? He's he's the president of the Teamsters, and so I don't know. Maybe there's somebody footing the bill for that, but it's difficult to imagine they're getting much bang for their buck there.
Let me ask you, since you brought it up, let me ask you, is it about unions? Because
no,
full disclosure, I haven't watched. I would assume that, because the guests that he's brought on, I'm not sure how they equate to pro-union stuff. So, that's the question I have. My view on it has been, when you get into a world where there's a lot of resource available, and this has been explained to me by friends who have gone to Washington, some who've gotten in trouble, some who haven't, the allure of the excess. It's hard to pass up. And, guy said to me, would you ever cheat on your wife? I said, no, I would never cheat on my wife. He goes, yeah, you say that now until you have an army of 25-year-old top 10 looking model women whispering anything in your ear at every moment of the day, because lobbyists are pushing in that direction. And when you're talking about the kind of pulls, the kind of sweeteners, you never know.
Right.
So I'm not getting too. I don't want to be conspiratorial. I just know what is. So I question what Sean's end game is. Now, is he right? Do Democrats suck? Yeah, and a lot of times they do. In fact, you just got the Democrats who passed this crypto bill, which I think is terrible. A return to company script, I say. But the Republicans, and this is where my criticism of O'Brien goes to the next level. yeah, it's okay to say Democrats suck, but to leave out how horrible the Republicans have been for organized labor, that every bad idea that has destroyed the working class of this country has come out of a Republican-funded think tank or a Republican study group or a Republican senator's office is well, it's political malpractice, it's dishonest, and it's, well, making me question whose payroll he's really on.
Well, and one of the things that you shared and that I saw from you was that when he was running against Hoffa Jr., one of the things that he hit Hoffa Jr. on was that Hoffa Jr. was not strong enough against Trump. And this is back in 2018. He did a Facebook post talking about how Hoffa Jr. was being weak and not telling the members like it is about how bad Trump has been for them. And it's only been worse from there. Trump has certainly not gotten any better since 2019 or since 2018. And so, yeah, it's really, really, really strange. Yeah. I'm not sure what to make of it.
While I can't blame O'Brien for Trump being in the White House, I can blame O'Brien for Bob Casey losing here in the state of Pennsylvania, because Casey's margin of victory was small enough that the Teamsters union, had they really been behind Casey and really got the vote out and really did a full court press, they could have gotten him over the hump, and they didn't. So for me, it's that other stuff too. Right. Because what they did is by going to the RNC, by saying Democrats suck, is you took those Teamsters who are, the threes, who are on the fence, they go either way. You now push them over to the Republican side, which cost Democrats votes. Now, were Democrats bad? Look, I thought Kamala was not a great candidate, and he's right. If someone came into my office and said, you got one question, I would recoil as well. But I look at what you're running against. I've been asked, is there anybody that would have been running that you would have voted for Trump? Any situation? I'm like, no, I would have voted for a ham sandwich over Donald Trump.
There are two people that have announced that they're running against Sean O'Brien right now, John Palmer and Richard Hooker. And being an outsider, it seems to me like Hooker has a better shot. It seems to me like people are taking his candidacy a little bit more seriously. And the Teamsters for a Democratic Union, I think it's undeniable that they were a big reason that O'Brien was able to get elected over Hoffa Jr. Their convention is in November, and they've said that they're going to be taking a vote about who to endorse. But the TDU has been very, very very intertwined in the O'Brien-Zuckerman administration at the IBT. And so I guess, how do you, if you were to make a guess, how would you anticipate this shaking out? Does the TDU endorse O'Brien, or do they not endorse, or do they endorse Hooker or Palmer, or are there people that are big names in the union that you think are going to be running as well that I'm not aware of?
I don't. I think the consensus from people that I've talked to is O'Brien's going to walk. That he's consolidated so much power that the people that could have run against him, he's brought in into the fold, and that the money he's got a war chest second to none, from what I'm being told. Because every place that he goes, there's an event where everyone is supposed to is encouraged to donate.
Right.
And look, I understand how this game is played. Anyone who's been around long enough gets that. Now, like I like Richard Hooker. I think what he does in Philly with the UPS workers is fantastic. And this election is really going to be it's going to be a referendum on that UPS contract. Mm-hmm. And I hear two different voices. I hear people saying it's the greatest contract ever because we're making almost $50 an hour. And then I hear people going, well, automation, closures, all of the stuff that comes at the bottom. And if Hooker can engage with the part-timers, can engage with the people at the bottom end of the scale at UPS, if UPS does what they're talking about and ditching Amazon and you lose a lot more people, I could see Hooker exploiting that. I can see Hooker, going after this thing, hiring the Nazi. I don't know if he's a Nazi anymore. He says he isn't. He said he was. He says he isn't. Whatever. But this is why we have elections. This is why we play the game. And for me, it's going to be interesting to see what the heart of the union is, because politically, O'Brien hasn't come to the aid of minorities, of people who are under attack right now. And for me, it'll be interesting to see where the heart of the soul of the average member is in the TDU vote. That'll kind of be the first test in where the membership is. One of the things I like about TDU is there's a lot of actual rank and file members who show. What will be interesting is if Hooker does come close, what will happen with those numbers? That's where the fun and the intrigue for me is what happens if things don't go according to plan.
Yeah, we'll see in November. I think, like you, that's going to be the first thing that I look for as somebody outside of the Teamsters is does the TDU endorse? And I think if they, I guess I would be shocked if they endorse somebody other than O'Brien, but I think the move for them would be that they don't endorse, and I think that would signal something. And so,
I would be shocked because they're in charge of the education fund money, from what I'm told. So they're deep in. Now, full disclosure, the Teamsters used to fund our program. When O'Brien took office, they pulled their funding in the most backdoor way possible, but they did pull their funding, something no union, in a way that no union has ever done in the 20 years I've been doing this. It was historic in my view, and it does speak volumes to O'Brien's leadership, in my view.
Yeah, like going around, one of the things that you said on Twitter was going around and telling also locals to stop sponsoring your program.
That's what I'm being told. But no, look, the invoice was sent in December. He didn't take over until March. He held off the funding while in the shadows. And then in April, I get a letter saying, oh, hey, we're not paying that invoice, which was, again, I've had leadership, change, and they've always honored their commitments. This is the first time that hasn't happened. So for me, then, it's not just because I lost a little bit of money. It's because it's the messaging that comes out of it. And then you tack on top firing people at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday via email, a lot of just stuff that the campaign will flesh out.
Yep. Well, Rick Smith, host of The Rick Smith Show, working Teamster, one of Talkers Magazine Heavy 100 lists for the third year in a row. Thank you for coming on the Valley Labor Report. Talk to us for a little bit. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right, y'all. You are still listening to the Valley Labor Report. We are what I like to think is the South's loudest voice for working people. And today, really excited about this conversation. We are going to be talking with Courtney Smith from Labor Notes, and we are going to talk a little bit about the connection between race and class. It's an important conversation. It's a conversation that has been on my mind a lot throughout my entire journey in the labor movement as someone here in the South. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Courtney, welcome to the Valley Labor Report.
Thanks for having me, Jacob. What, Adam? Why is your name Jacob on here? You're throwing me off.
Oh, yeah, that's our, Slick Productions. Welcome to the Valley Labor Report. Glad to have you on here. And, something that you have been doing for a little while with Labor Notes is running the Race and Labor program. So let's just start there. Tell us a little bit about this training and why do this?
Yeah, why is the big question. So I'll start with just explaining what the training is. So Race and Labor is a discussion-based workshop that we had developed at Labor Notes for union members, stewards, and worker leaders that are organizing in their workplaces, which we know is shaped by racism. So we use a popular education approach. We try not to lecture here. So there's not a whole lot of historical information that we bring. It's very much a discussion-based sort of framework that we use to bring in the knowledge and wisdom of the lived experience of workers who deal with this on a daily basis. We believe that the people that are closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. So we talk through examples of how does racism show up in our unions and in our workplaces. We then talk through what are some tools that we have available to us, whether it's through our union or whether it's with our coworkers and organizing direct actions. What are the ways that we can start to utilize what we have available to us to bring in more workers of color so that we can build the power we need to take on these larger racial justice fights. So we also use past racial justice fights that workers have taken on, whether they had a union or not. And we reflect on it and we talk about, what were the issues that they were experiencing, what makes these examples of racial justice, and what were the strategies that they used? What are the lessons that we can take from how they built power to tackle this issue? And so we do that reflection, and then at the end, we bring it all together if we can. Usually we don't get to this far in the workshop, but we try to then think about what is an issue that we can bring in more workers of color in your workplace and build a campaign around. And that's usually if we can get there, we get some workers who already bring in, a workplace issue that they're dealing with and wanting to organize around. So we get to kind of choose one person's issue and think through what are ways that this person can start to organize and build and bring people in to tackle this issue in their workplace.
I think that is so important to have that collective brainstorming and strategizing and problem solving. I really appreciate Labor Notes and the approach that y'all have to do that, to draw out people's experiences and people's knowledge that they have, right? It's not just the lecturer who has all the answers, but no, like together, let's work on these issues and try to come up with some common solutions. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I appreciate you kind of laying out the race and labor training, and so folks can have an idea of what it is and what y'all offer. But it's not just like taking the workshops either at the Labor Notes conference or online. You've worked with locals out in the field, right? You've worked with locals, around the country, and you and Labor Notes team are experts in terms of providing resources that can really help educate folks. And so I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about your experience working with some federal workers on racial justice, and if you had any reflections or just takeaways from that experience.
Yeah. So I'm like smiling real big because you called us experts, and my initial thought was like, oh, absolutely. I really try to approach my work and let people know I am not the expert here. I just have the questions to your specific context to unlock the answer that you have inside of you.
It's funny that you had that reaction, because I knew as soon as I said that's exactly how you were going to respond. But I couldn't help it because for my journey in the labor movement, I just always have looked to Labor Notes as like that place to get more educated. And so, that's just, I guess, my fandom coming through. But for me as a unionist here in Alabama, in a place where unions aren't always popular or as common as they should be, Labor Notes has been that bright light for me, because I could always educate myself and then start to find those other like-minded people and educate each other and come together and learn together, which is obviously way better when we're talking about collective action, right? You can't do it all by yourself. So I'm not surprised you had that reaction, but because I totally understand that perspective and coming into it with that approach. I really do appreciate the emphasis that y'all put on education and how we can empower ourselves as members.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the underlying philosophical approaches of Labor Notes is just radical respect and dignity for workers. And so we respect the wisdom in the room, and knowing that we're not here to give you the answer, because if you rely on us for the answer, then you're going to have to come to us tomorrow when you are facing a different challenge.
Right.
And so I think the core of popular education is really giving people the key to their own context. And the key is always in asking the right question. I definitely, the way that I've approached in building the race and labor curriculum, I'll actually answer your question that we didn't get to. I forgot to in the first initial question you asked of why we started to do this work. So this came out of Bianca Cunningham when she was on staff with Race and Labor. She got introduced to this work, to the Race and Labor curriculum that was built by Bill Fletcher Jr. out in Seattle, Washington, later Labor Council. And so she brought in race and labor programming to labor notes, recognizing the limitations that, historically the labor movement has experienced in bringing in workers of color and really building multiracial coalitions. Unions in the labor movement are just a reflection of capitalism, right? So it's going to have the same kind of hierarchical hierarchies that capitalism will have. And so the troublemaking wing of the labor movement has also been a reflection of that, and has also been pretty white. And so I think there was an intentional effort made to bring in just more diversity, to make sure that we are being very intentional about addressing racial justice issues. I think, it's been an evolving process of how do we figure out what is the best approach. And so it's changed over the years. And we've, experienced limitations of our own, and really building out a robust program, the kind of robust program that I would want to see. But yeah, we took on this work because it's important for unions to prioritize racial justice issues, because that is the tool that bosses use to divide us, or one of the tools, and it's very effective, as we can see today. So. Yeah, just wanted to get to that question.
Yeah, and I want to acknowledge this is really difficult, right? Like, this is not one of those like light subjects or like highly technical subjects where, you can just go up and do your PowerPoint and everyone's got it and it's no controversy and everyone's on the same page, right? This is really, these are some tough conversations to have with our members and with our, not just our union siblings, but our neighbors, our community. And, especially I think about my experience here in the South and seeing this tool of division and how powerful it has been throughout our history and even obviously up through today. And we can look and see how many of our communities are segregated still. We can see the inequities between schools, between resources. And it's something that if we aren't talking about it as a union, we aren't part of the solution, right? And if we're not addressing these problems internally, if we're not having space for that open conversation, and I know I will just say my experiences as a unionist here in Alabama is that there are a lot of folks in the union movement who don't want to talk about these issues, who want to shy away. Maybe it's too controversial. They're scared that it may push some people away, or it may stir up some things that, are better left untouched. But my experience has also been that when you have that approach, you're not actually, avoiding issues. You're letting issues bubble.
Absolutely.
You're letting issues bubble up and fester and because it doesn't go away just because you don't talk about it, just because you don't acknowledge it, it does not go away. So yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that this is very difficult and it's not always going to be popular or easy, but it is so necessary. So I really appreciate that, and
absolutely,
I'll let you get back to where you were going.
Yeah. No, I mean, just to piggyback off of that, I mean, the absence of chaos doesn't mean peace, right? So, you know, while you're avoiding this undercurrent of tension that exists within your workplace or within your union, it doesn't go away. And I think, you know, we are living in the consequence, I think, of not just, you know, I won't just limit it to, you know, not tackling racial justice issues. I think, you know, obviously this is, there's a lot of nuance in how we found ourselves here. And I think one of the ways that we have is because we've avoided really creating spaces where people can have honest conversations around not just about race, I think around the ways that we are vulnerable to showing up fully to work. And I think that is the intersection where the distortion happens, I think, in how we think about race and who we consider a vulnerable worker. We're told it's just through identity, right? That's that your identity alone is what will create the vulnerability. Whereas we know class and having access to resources and power can change, you know, a person's ability to thrive and to survive under these capitalist conditions, right? You know, and so a vulnerable worker, for me, the definition of a vulnerable worker would be someone who has external circumstances that are outside of work and could be outside of their control, or maybe it's within their control and they just haven't been able to do anything about it yet. I'm thinking of people with addictions and mental illnesses that have trouble accessing resources for help. These sorts of conditions make it hard for people to show up fully to work and will create a fear around stepping up to the boss and pushing back on workplace issues. It's exasperated through identity and through, I think, the historical economic exploitation of minority workers. But I guess I say all of that to say the importance of doing this kind of work with humility and being able to, first of all, not get up in front of a room full of workers who are already vulnerable to the fact that they have to work and become another expert that tells them what to do and how to police themselves. Right. So I try really hard to create a space where we are all here as learners. I'm not the expert. I'm just facilitating a conversation that can be very difficult. And I also, one of the reasons I try to limit the amount of content that I give and make it a discussion-based conversation is because of the confusion around race and the different approaches, I think, over the years that, and different ideas that are out there around race and racism and anti-racism. And, you know, Neil, there's so much information out there. I don't want people to feel like they have to have read Marx and this sort of book and that. And, you know, so I try to really base it off of people's lived experience and using the spiral model of lived experience, exploring someone's lived experience, analyzing the power dynamic within that experience. Who does this benefit and why? And then we explored an analysis of, well, you know, this idea came from somewhere. What is who benefits from this idea, and from, does it match with your lived reality? So it's a process, I think, that you have to kind of build with people. And you can't do that if I'm just talking at people. So, this work has been evolving, and I want to continue to evolve it. I've, really relied on feedback from a lot of the workers who've come to the training, and then a lot of the troublemaker schools that I've taken this training to. I've been intentional about choosing workers of color in that area, because racism also is dependent on your geography location, right? Where you're at in the world. It's going to be different in the South than it's going to look out in California. Or say in New York, where there's more union density and more people who are who know that unions are a place that they can go to for protection. And somewhere in the South, there's workers who don't even know that that's an option for them, right? How many, when we did the Alabama Troublemaker School, one of the workshops that we had to make sure to do was just the Union 101, workplace rights. Like, just knowing your rights, that you even have rights as a worker, I think is a different sort of experience to have than being in a place where that's, a common experience among people. So it's really developed, I think, and it's changes depending on the context that I'm in as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that discussion is really powerful, because you're right. Like, there's been so much over the years that just between TV and social media, between the politics of it, right? And like, I remember when critical race theory was something like you couldn't hardly go a day without hearing about critical race theory on the news, right? And most people didn't even know really what that was about. They just started using context clues from media coverage.
Yeah.
And so it's important just to have that space where we can just have real conversations. And something else you said that stood out with me was the humility. And, like, that's something that certainly is on my mind, that I know I'm a straight white guy from the South. There's a lot of stuff I just don't know. There's a lot of blind spots that I have. There's experiences that I will never have. And it's not that I have to like necessarily feel bad about that. It's just acknowledge like the realities that my experiences are not going to be everyone's experiences. And there are going to be things that I don't see or don't notice necessarily. But if I can try to approach it with that humility, I think that seems to have been, helpful in my experience in terms of just building diverse relationships and building relationships with workers who may not look like me or talk like me, but, we've built that relationship on trust and understanding and like you said, the respect, just the true respect that, hey, we're fellow human beings. We both bring something to the table. So
Absolutely.
this come together on that. So,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just, in touching on this, because that's honestly, it's one of the reflections that I've had to be honest about for my own limitations in thinking about my identity, being biracial, being pretty light skinned, and knowing that I make white people feel pretty comfortable. So it's going to be a different experience that I will have out in the world versus someone who's darker than me. And I think the other reflection that I've had in just being honest about the audience that actually comes to these workshops would be mostly white people who are in the labor movement, who agree that racial justice should be a priority, right? So out the door, I know that most of the people who are coming to this workshop already agree with me. So it's not that I have to convince anyone that comes to my specific workshops that racism is bad. Now I just got to teach you humility, right? And because one of the important things that I try to do, or one of the things that I think is important for people who are white and want to do this work is to ground themselves in their own humanity, and in their own the long tradition of organizing that they are rooting themselves in. Because if you ground yourself in your whiteness, white guilt will win every time. It will that is how it becomes a tool for defense. And when we start to go into shame and protectionism, because now you made yourself into the bad guy, and there's all sorts of mistakes that happen in that sort of context.
Right.
So I do, and just knowing that about these workshops and who comes, I think an important aspect of it is grounding this in the political economy and in our humanity, that we are all workers and we are all put under these conditions to have to show up to work every day. So we are all being exploited, and the oppression happens through the identity frame, and we're going to have a different experience. And so you have to come into it with the humility of that, and grounding yourself in your own humanity and knowing that other people are going to have a different experience than you. And not to be weird about it, Adam. It gets weird, I think, when people start to think in a racial context and framework because of the way that we've talked about race in this country. So I've had people in my race and labor workshops ask me how to have an organizing conversation with a Black worker. And I've never had that question be asked in a Secrets of a Successful Organizing workshop. Does that make sense?
That's interesting.
There's I find an issue with that. We don't have to speak differently to a Black worker. You just have to talk to them as a human being and ask them genuinely, how are you? And getting to know them and just building a relationship. And I think we've lost the ability to do that because we have these blind spots.
Right.
We don't see each other. We've been told we're different, and we are. There's differences because we have different life experiences, but yeah, we're all human at the end of the day. We all have to go to work to take care of our needs.
Right.
So I think we can start there, and you start to build a genuine relationship instead of an allyship that can be pretty superficial.
Right. And that's something that I know, we've discussed on this show before, and it's come up in conversations, is like, it seems like there are aspects of trying to weaponize diversity against working class unity, and people are talking about race, but in the context of like their human resources department. And, like you said earlier, it's like one more person telling you what to do or what you shouldn't do, and I understand how that's not fostering the sort of real dialogue that we need to kind of work together. And, but you also talked about the relationships, and that's really important, because something else that's been on my mind for sure is isolation. A lot of folks do feel isolated, and it can feel isolating to try to tackle some of these issues, whether it's in your workplace, in your union, or just out in the world, and you just recognize that things are messed up and they should be better, right? And that can be an isolating feeling, just that in and itself sometimes, especially depending on where you're at. And so, I'm curious of any reflections you've had in working with folks on around racial justice and education of their membership. If you've had any experiences that really stood out to you, moments that maybe, break that isolation a little bit, or like give us some sort of, some hope in the midst of all the isolation.
Yeah. So I'll share two stories that I can think of. And in reflecting on this question. Because again, it's a big question, right? Like, this isolation is an intentional thing.
Right.
We are alienated from each other just through so many means that elites have used to really isolate us and keep us divided. And so race is just one of the ways. It's hard to answer and to even like quantify. I think the extreme isolation that I know everyone is feeling right now. We've been in a loneliness epidemic since before COVID, and it's only exasperated since. So I'll share reflections from my own experience, and also in an example that I can think of in just the race and labor work that I've done, which you mentioned earlier with the federal workers. So I'll share a little bit about that. But I'll say I'm a single mother, so I have that I would say makes me a vulnerable worker, that I have conditions outside of work that can be outside of my control that make it difficult for me to show up, right? And on top of that, I recently had a medical health scare, and I felt alone in that, because capitalism makes you feel alone, that if the issue is only impacting you and not anybody else, then it's only for you to solve, right? I think that's what tends to happen, is that we internalize these systemic problems that are created by not by us. We don't get to choose these conditions. They're created by, the elites who create the policy and bring in the jobs, right? So I think capitalism just creates this sort of fear and isolation that makes it hard for people to really feel like they can go to the collective for a solution to their individual problem. And so it makes people really vulnerable on the job. And so recently my coworkers had to intervene on behalf of me in getting me time off for work to tackle my medical issues. And I think for me, it was an experience that like one of the most profound acts of solidarity, I think, that I could, not that I could find, what am I trying to say? I think some things you just have to experience. You can't read about it in a book, right? Like, I wouldn't have been able to share.
It's something you feel. It's not. It's not just something like you read about or you can acknowledge, but no, it's like you actually feel it inside. Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah. Like a lot of the race and labor work has been a reflection of what my experience has been in being a part of a collective organization that's democratic, right? I have never had that experience before, so I've never known what it was like to be protected by my coworkers, let alone to have. I've never had a union, so there are ways that I just didn't know what that experience would be like until my coworkers filled in that gap. So I'll actually use this as my segue then into how I thought about the work that I did with IFPTE Local 98. And I'm just being specific because I think it's important to place people in their correct context, because this isn't a step-by-step sort of answer here. This is just an example that I can give of what it can look like for a union to tackle racial justice issues. So just wanted to give that disclaimer.
Right. So there is no one formula that just solves it all, right? It would be really great if we could just like plug and play, like, oh, we just fixed it.
Yes.
But absolutely.
Yeah. And I had to let go of the pressure of feeling like I needed to come up with like a a one size fits all solution or something, and just know that this is just, it's going to be so context dependent that I either have to get too in the weeds or be too abstract that it's not going to really make sense. So, yeah, thank you for allowing me that disclaimer first before I jump in. IFPTE Local 98 is a federal workers union. There are Army Corps of Engineers out in New York City. So I worked with Crystals and Christina Villa, who, to situate them in their context. So these were rank and file reform leaders who came up through a caucus that they had already formed, I think a couple of years prior to them running for president and vice president. So they had already started kind of reform efforts in their union, I think during the first Trump election, because there were some things that he was doing back then, and that they were able to organize around because their union was pretty sleepy at the time. Their leaders had no clue how to organize against these attacks, which were pretty minor. It was big at the time, but they're minor looking back. So this group of workers formed a caucus and was able to get leadership of their union because of how sleepy their union was. Crystals and Christina Villa had already done the work of sort of building up organizing infrastructure in their union by the time they had started working with me. So they came to me to Labor Notes late 2023, and I didn't end up starting to work with them until kind of mid 2024. It was after the 2024 conference. So it took us a while, but they originally were coming to me to basically put me in a position of expert, right? I think everyone thinks that, they need to bring in someone else to figure this out. So they had a whole kind of, we want you to do a survey of our members and blah, blah, blah. And coming in with humility, I'm not going to do all of that. I think you
Right.
have the answers here. So I just talked with them, and we sort of, we met a few times, and we talked through, what the organizing infrastructure was that they had already had established. Just to run through that real quick, they had a great stewards network already established where they had, stewards in each department that also had like a slush fund where they could bring together their department for a happy hour every once in a while and do fun activities with their coworkers as a union, right? And so they created a union, a culture of the union within their workplace, just by establishing these stewards networks that was also connected to doing social activities with your coworkers and just bringing people together to have fun.
Yeah, I love that.
And then another great example of what they were already doing really well was communicating with their members. They had a newsletter already. And we know one of the ways that the boss disorganizes us is by confusing us. And so an effective tool that the union has is communication, whether it's through a newsletter or one-on-one conversations, or, group sessions together, bringing workers together. But communicating to your members is an important way to, first of all, establish trust, make yourself visible, and cut through the confusion that the boss tries to, in how the boss tries to disorganize people.
Right.
So they already had this structure set up. I believe they were already doing political education as well with their members. But that's just it. So they already had these great structures kind of set up, established in their union already. And so all I do is come in and I highlight, well, what are you doing well that will allow your members of color, your vulnerable members, to one, make the union visible, to see that you're a place that they can come to in need, and then two, to bring more members in, to be able to participate democratically in the union process, because that is the other, I think, crucial point in doing racial justice work. Is actually hearing from the workers themselves the issues that they're experiencing, and also bringing them along to and empowering them to solve their own problems, and not just saying that you're going to do it for them, and that you have the power to be able to handle this. And so having ways for your members to participate in their own in solving their own problems empowers people. And helps actually bring a solution that would solve the issues that vulnerable workers are experiencing. So they were already doing that really well. So then the next kind of piece that we had to work through was how to bring in more members of color in participating in their union. And how to deal with racial justice issues as they come up in the workplace, those ones that are interpersonal, right? So now, mind you, we're looking at the Army. This is the place where hierarchies begin, is in the United States government, right? And it relies on hierarchies. So that's also something that you have to just kind of be honest in looking at your workplace about, is there's going to be hierarchies, and what does that look like in your context? Where are the workers of color in that context? And what do we do about it? So you don't know what to do about it until you talk to workers of color. So you can identify what are the actual issues that they're experiencing. So I told them to invite workers of color to a luncheon at least once a month for a while, to establish trust with them. And I said, don't ask them for anything. You pay for the lunch. We also, in knowing that optics matters, I talked them through, what does it look like to have a white man as the president and a Black woman as the VP, Black Latino woman as the VP? And, how do you sort of balance those dynamics out and acknowledge that exists, right? That it matters. It's going to matter if you just send the Black woman to do the racial justice work, but also know that as the white man, you're coming in having to earn some trust. So we talked through that and building up trust with their members of color, and allowing them the space to actually talk through what are the issues that they're experiencing in their workplace. And so they did that, I think, for a couple of months. And out of that came an equity committee. I think they were struggling trying to figure out what the name of this committee would be. So I'll just say equity for sake of being concise.
Sure.
So they, I think out of that came this equity committee that they then opened up to the rest of union members. So anyone who is interested in doing racial justice work. Initially, I did tell them to limit it to workers of color and building up an identity caucus, and then making sure to bring in other workers later on who are one who we know is committed to racial justice work, but not keeping it in isolation. in just building this identity caucus. You have to bring it to the rest of the union in order to make it a priority. And so that's, I think from that committee, and this is where the details make it fuzzy. But I think that became a kind of direct response sort of team. So I met with them in December of 2024 was the last time that we had met. And at that time, they had told me a story of, which we wrote about in labor notes, of a pregnant worker who was about to go on maternity leave and was asking for more time off. And the supervisor basically, told her to kick it up to someone else, that they, tried to kick it down the road and say that this worker couldn't go on early maternity leave. So she's obviously almost due. There's no time to try to kick this down the road and figure out who is the person that she needs to go to.
Time is of the essence.
Right. So she goes to her union, and she goes to her union, and they immediately get on the phone, activate their stewards network, and say, we need you to bring in workers to the office at this time. They were within an hour, were able to get 30 workers to the office. I think it's the union office. And drew up a petition, did a march on the boss, and got this worker her early maternity leave. Now, I don't know about you. I think this is amazing.
Yes.
On the basis of she is the only person that was impacted by this issue, right? We know as organizers how hard it is to motivate people into action to do something about even their own issue.
Right.
Right. Even if it's an issue that is extremely making their life hard, it'll be hard. It's even difficult in that context to motivate people to action. And so I think that just for me was a profound act of what it looks like. What solidarity looks like, not just in action and not just as a moral sort of response, right? Because now we see that this union is not just focused on how their workplace issue and how their work is going to be impacted by what Trump is doing. They're connecting it to their community, right? And so having this framework of an injury to one is an injury to all.
Exactly.
And if they come after one, they may not be coming after you, but that's only because the rules hasn't changed yet, right? And that's what it means on the basis of an injury to one is an injury to all. If you have the framework that capitalism and, there's them and there's us, then they're going to be coming for all of us at some point. They just haven't changed the rules to include you yet.
Right.
So solidarity is important on that basis alone.
Yeah, I love that story. I love that story. I mean, I love seeing that sort of, and like you said, it was rapid response and to get people into action quickly about an issue that doesn't directly impact them. It is so remarkable, and it speaks to, the relationships they had built and the culture they had, instilled in the local. And so that, really remarkable and a powerful story. And I mean, I can just imagine how she felt when
absolutely
that went through, and when she saw her coworkers have her back. What an amazing feeling that must have been for her. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to say on that because it's just a totally different experience to have in America.
Right.
Obviously the boss feeds on that, right? It feeds on the fact that if they single out one of us and then the rest of them don't come, then they know they can do it to all of us at some point.
That's right.
Just by picking us out one by one. And I think where the labor movement may have gone wrong, I don't think may, I think has gone wrong, to be quite honest, is I don't think we've reckoned with the fact that the labor movement is only 6% of the working population. And that's just the working population. There's a whole other group of people who are displaced and who are poor and who don't have a job or are in such terrible, that underground economies exist, right? And so the bosses also feed on these sorts of conditions as well. And I think when the labor movement emphasizes who they're against more than they emphasize who they're actually for, like we tout we're against the rich, all against the boss, and I think obviously that's an important value to have to know what we're fighting against. But I think it's just as equally important to know who you're fighting for. And I think focusing on racial justice helps us keep that in frame and into perspective and prioritize it. And it's through it's not just these, how do we win these big racial justice fights? It doesn't have to be a big showdown in order to, show solidarity. Vulnerable workers aren't going to make themselves visible to you. They're not coming to the labor movement because the labor movement has never, it's when you call people scabs, when the boss created conditions that made them so desperate that they and need to eat that they would cut off a part of their humanity just to have a job. That's excluding a lot of workers. That's 94% of workers who aren't represented by a union, who we shame and call scabs for needing to eat.
Well, and I think something that really sticks with me is that the labor movement has to be for all of us, for all working people, because working people, we are the majority. We are the vast majority. And the labor movement does not represent the vast majority of workers at this time, right? As you said, I mean, it's a fraction of a fraction. It's nowhere near the strength that we've had before, that we should have. But labor at its best is when we are fighting for the whole working class, for the whole working majority, that spins the wheels of this society and fights for every one of us, no matter what we look like, no matter where we come from. If we're workers, that's who we are for, and that's what we're about. And I think that's, the potential that we have. And because that's the amazing thing is, like, the glass half empty is, damn, our numbers are really low. But the glass half full is like, look at the potential. Look at all the potential to grow. We do have that. And that is kind of an amazing thing to think about, the potential coalition that we can build. And you've talked a little bit about it today, just like the conditions that we're facing in this country now. And that's, people in a lot of conversations I've had with folks, I've brought that up, that, the glass half full angle to this is that every day, every new attack on folks, every new attack on marginalized people, every attack on unions, every attack on the environment, like, these are all new potential coalition partners. These are all people we can bring into the fold. And it's our opportunity to meet the moment and to bring people into the fold and really build that kind of unity across lines and across race and religion and all the ways that we're divided. this is our opportunity. You know, it's kind of a make or break thing. So we've got to do it. We don't have a choice. So, you know, I really appreciate the work that you do and the work the Labor Notes does and trying to, you know, put the fight and the movement back into the labor movement so that we're not just a bunch of institutions, right?
Absolutely.
The movement is so much deeper than that. Just some institutions and some officers and some stuff that files reports. And like, we're so much better and bigger than that. And it's deeper than that. And it's what you talked about and named earlier, like that feeling, that real feeling that you get when you know folks had your back, your brothers and sisters had your back and looked out for you when they didn't have to, but they did. And it made your life better. And so that is that feeling that we've got to spread, and people have to, you know, they do have to feel it to believe it. But, you know, I guess it's up to us to be those evangelists and help them feel that feeling.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think, you know, we're in such a critical moment right now. And I know everybody is scared. Nobody knows what to do. The lights have been turned off and everybody's just scrambling around in the dark. And so I think it's ironic that people are still looking up to these institutions that for power, right? Like we keep looking to, you know, the electoral strategy or the whatever, and not really reckoning with that, how this is all the consequences of what may be coming down the pipe, right? And we forget, I think, in the labor movement that our power never came from the institutions to begin with, right? I mean, the whole function and purpose of unions was just workers coming together simply off of the basis that they were all being exploited by one employer.
Right.
And now we, you know, all these leaders are looking up and trying to still vie for power instead of looking down at their membership. And like you said, 6% of the working population is still 6%. Those people have families. Why aren't we talking with them about their families and figuring out what do they need outside of here in order to feel protected? I don't want to purport to have answers, so I'm like struggling to. I want to stop myself here because I'll come off as like thinking that I have the answers and what people should do right now. But I do think that it's important to go back to our tradition of actually building relationships with people through organizing and in their communities, not just in the workplace, right? These people live in communities and have families. So I think I've been trying to find hope drawing out of the CIO tradition, right? Of a time where actually this is something that a worker had shared with me that really just grounded me a little bit. They said, you know, there was a time where we believed that people were born kings and queens. And somehow we were able to break free of believing that fucking lie, right? And organizing to have different sorts of conditions. And so I think I want to ground myself. I try to ground myself in just the faith of humanity that, you know, things have been worse before, right? We've had really terrible conditions. In the 1930s was really, really bad. And somehow, without the internet and without phones, we had organizers who organized in their workplace and in the community. And we were able to do something about it. Yeah, we were able to do something about our conditions.
That's right.
I'm really just trying to ground myself in that right now, Adam, and in the fact that, there are still people who are trying to figure it out, right? That not everybody has retreated. And so hopefully that's a good note to end it on. I know things are grim right now.
I think so, but I think that's right.
Yeah. We've been here before. We've been here before, and I'm really trying to learn from those radical traditions of actually rooting ourselves in our communities. That's the best answer that I can have, that I have with how do you combat the isolation that we feel.
Right.
See each other, see your coworkers, go outside and look at your talk to your neighbors, take off the headphones while you're walking through this grocery store. I've been, just trying to get off your phone, man. Because there are
really
just so
important.
many ways that we feel isolated. Yeah.
It's really important. It's important to rebuild that humanity, the human connection, because that's what's going to power us through these moments, and that's what's going to be our strength is that human connection and building the real solidarity. So I really appreciate it, Courtney. Was there anything you wanted to leave us with before we wrap? Anything to plug or share with us about Labor Notes?
Thank you of course, yes. So I will be holding a race and labor workshop in August, starting, I believe we're doing August 7th, 14th, and the 21st. So on Thursday evenings from 7:30 to 9:30, I'll be holding a race and labor workshop. I'm going to try and offer these more often. But I also do race and labor consultations. So if you're a rank and file member of your union right now, if you don't have a union, or if you're a leader rank and file leader who is searching for answers right now and just looking for a way to strategize and think about how they can respond to the moment we're in right now, I also offer that. Labor Notes has a ton of online events. We'll be holding a secrets workshop in August, our Secrets of a Successful Organizer workshop. And then I believe we have some troublemaker schools that are coming up in some areas. So there's the one in North Carolina we'll be having, I believe September 20th is the date there. And I'm blanking on when the other one is. So sorry about that.
You can go to labornotes.org/events and find out all of this.
Labornotes.org. Absolutely. Labornotes.org/events, where you can find all of these details and the events that we offer either online or in person.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Courtney. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. So thank you. And again, folks, go to labornotes.org/events. You can sign up for the training, find out more information there. Courtney, thanks again.
Thank you, Adam.
That's going to do it for today's broadcast of the Valley Labor Report. We hope you enjoyed the show. Again, you can call and leave a voicemail anytime throughout the week, 844-899-TVLR. We listen to all the voicemails, and we may play and react to it in a future live show. We do appreciate your feedback, so let us know. Let us know what you thought of today's show, if there's anything that was said that you would like to comment on, if you have any questions about anything that was talked about on this show or a previous show. But also, if you have ideas for other shows that you would love to see us connect with, we are open to suggestions. We just love getting that kind of feedback, any creative feedback, that sort of thing. We are open to, we read everything that we get, and we will definitely take ideas into consideration. So yeah, if you know of another show or another host or organization or something that you would love to see us connect with, and especially if you have a connection with them, connect us with them. We would love to have that happen. Send us a message at tvlr.fm/contact. Again, thank you so much for spending time with me today and just bearing with me and the unpolishedness of all of this. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our website, tvlr.fm. Sign up to receive Boss Watch and Last Week in Southern Labor newsletters, or send us feedback, critiques, ideas, whatever, tvlr.fm/contact. Everything should be back to normal next week, but until then, solidarity forever. All power to the workers.